While others set sail to find One Piece, Kaido set sail to find a good place to drink. The grand line remains the same, only the enemy's bad luck has skyrocketed. Kaido appears, not to train, not to talk, but to teach the world how to lie down properly, while the enemy is still buffing their stats. Kaido has already finished fighting and is back to drink more. Yonko, Marine, Celestial Dragons. Sounds familiar, but let's fight together quickly. This isn't a journey to become stronger, but a journey where Kaido makes others weaker. The ultimate challenge begins with us. Awesome and entertaining. You'll be hooked. Redfield circled around with his sword, his expression unchanged, and said, "One former admiral, one current admiral. Quite interesting. Come on, let me see how much skill you two possess." How terrifying, Lord read the aloof Redfield. "You're underestimating me." Kizaru had barely finished speaking when he transformed into a beam of light and launched an attack towards Redfield. "Lord Redfield, have you ever experienced the light speed kick?" Kizaru, with a contemptuous look, appeared beside Redfield and kicked out. Facing Kizaru's attack, Redfield remained calm but extended his hand in response, saying, "Kizaru, your strength is not superior to mine." Bang! Kizaru's light speed kick was easily blocked by Redfield. Kizaru wasn't surprised by this. Redfield's strength was also top tier. If a single move could defeat Redfield, then Kizaru wouldn't need to fear Kaido of the 100 Beasts. As Redfield blocked Kizaru's attack, Zephyr's fist also approached Redfield. Redfield countered with his sword, striking Zephyr's incoming fist. Bang! The three instantly clashed, facing the combined attack of Zephyr and Kizaru. Redfield felt pressured, but also incredibly excited. This was the kind of battle he wanted. It was fortunate Zephyr was in a weakened state. Otherwise, even Redfield alone wouldn't be able to handle to peak level admirals like he was now. Just then, a figure like a flash of lightning flew in. Such a spectacular battle here. How could it be without my participation? Enel's voice, with a deadpan expression, boomed. Kizaru's initially arrogant expression instantly crumbled, and he exclaimed, "How terrifying!" "Enel, the user of the Goro Goro no Mi, this time we're in real trouble. Teacher Zephyr, perhaps we should retreat first. Our subordinates might be in danger too." After saying this, Kizaru's body began to continuously transform into light, ready to leave at any moment. After all, with the beast pirates involved, this mission was destined to fail. At the same time, Zephyr had no desire to continue fighting. He wasn't a fool. He could clearly see the situation. His students were still on this island, and Zephyr had to be responsible for them. Enel caught up with Kizaru and pressed him, "Kizaru, since you're here, there's no need to leave. Let's settle this first." How terrifying! Enel, the user of the Goro Goro no Mi from the Beast Pirates. What a pity. "I don't have time to play with you." Kizaru adopted a contemptuous demeanor, completely disregarding Enel's fighting spirit. Kizaru wasn't one to panic. Continuing the fight with the Beast Pirates would only bring disadvantages and no advantages. As for Zephyr, he also fled, but Redfield didn't pursue him. According to Redfield, Lord Kaido's mission was to steal the Dynastone. So, stealing the Dynastone was enough. As for other things like fighting, it was simply unnecessary fun, and he wasn't as impatient as Enel. Zephyr reached the shore, and Redfield followed suit. During his escape, Zephyr noticed that Redfield didn't seem to have any intention of pursuing him, which made Zephyr suspicious. However, for him, this was good news. Avoiding further entanglement with Redfield would only make things more complicated. Meanwhile, on the shore, Hina, Ain, and the others, defeated by Katakuri, watched helplessly as Dynastone was transported onto the ship by the Beast Pirates. When Zephyr arrived, seeing this scene, he could only make a reluctant choice: to lead the students to escape, otherwise they would all be left there. Katakuri's cold gaze fell upon Zephyr, questioning, "Old man, saving someone's life right under my nose. You don't seem to have any respect for me, do you?" Haha, Zephyr chuckled coldly, saying, "Big Mom Charlotte Lin's strongest son. Now it seems he's nothing more than someone else's hound. Honey-baked strength." Katakuri wouldn't tolerate Zephyr's actions, using such a low-level method of sowing discord. Several fists formed from Machi no Mi fruits, covered in Bisashoku Haki, struck towards Zephyr. Zephyr hurriedly shouted, "I'll hold off the enemy. You all hurry and escape." Teacher Zephyr, and the others all showed pained expressions. After all, they were too weak, otherwise they wouldn't have become a burden to Teacher Zephyr. Now that Teacher Zephyr had given them a glimmer of hope, they couldn't give up. At this moment, a pirate from the Beast Pirates asked, "Lord Katakuri, should we pursue them?" "No need. Focus on transporting the Dynastone. That's the most important task this time." Katakuri also understood the importance of the mission. Compared to the pursuit by the Navy, bringing the Dynastone back perfectly unharmed was the crucial task assigned by Lord Kaido. Redfield also flew over, watching Katakuri and Zephyr fight, and slowly commented, "Katakuri, I'll leave this old man to you." Katakuri didn't reply, but focused on fighting, while Zephyr's heart had already cooled halfway. He probably wouldn't escape today, and now he could only hope that his student could get away. At this moment, Kizaru finally escaped from Enel and returned to the shore. Finally escaped from that Enel. It really made me feel very quiet. What a terrifying beast pirates. Kizaru's first reaction upon returning was to lead Hina and the other Navy soldiers away from the area without a word. If he wanted to die, he could continue fighting right here. But Kizaru wasn't that stupid. He'd prioritize saving himself first. What made Kizaru breathe a sigh of relief was that Redfield didn't seem to be pursuing him. Otherwise, Kizaru would have been in for a real headache. Hina said apologetically, "Admiral Kizaru, I'm sorry for causing you trouble." "It's all right. Let's leave quickly." Kizaru waved his hand, indicating it was no big deal. Even if they did stop him, only they wouldn't be able to escape. Kizaru himself wasn't the only one who could. It just hadn't reached that point yet. Hina hurriedly continued to inquire, "Admiral Kizaru, what about Teacher Zephyr? We can't abandon Teacher Zephyr." No matter what, Master Zephyr was Hina's mentor, so Hina didn't want to watch Zephyr be killed by the beast pirates. Kizaru glanced at Zephyr fighting Katakuri out of the corner of his eye, and replied contemptuously, "How terrifying." "Vice Admiral Hina, if you want to stay, I have no objection, but I must leave first." "This, Admiral Kizaru." Hina was instantly stunned. Was Admiral Kizaru really that cold-blooded? This truly surprised Hina. Hina stared at Master Zephyr and finally decided to turn around and flee. Even if he stayed, he wouldn't be able to do anything and would only cause more trouble for Master Zephyr, as he didn't have Admiral-level combat power. If Hina herself possessed Admiral-level combat power, staying might even allow her to take Master Zephyr away. The problem is, if he stays, he might end up being killed along with the beast pirates, which would be a complete loss. This kind of thing should be handled by Admiral Kizaru, but who knew Admiral Kizaru simply ignored it. Enel, utterly audacious, charged back, angrily shouting, "Damn Kizaru, you dare to mock me. I want you dead. You escaped the Pika Pika no Mi fruit abilities blockade so quickly." Kizaru looked disdainfully at the charging Enel. Kizaru had originally thought he could block Enel for a while longer, so that at least, after he left, everything would be fine. But Enel chasing after him, wasn't that just prolonging the entanglement? To be honest, Kizaru disliked it intensely, but there was nothing he could do. Upon arriving at Enel, Kizaru could only hope that Redfield wouldn't interfere. Otherwise, Kizaru would truly abandon the Marines and retreat alone. In Kizaru's mind, he had no intention of staying here and losing his life. He still had unfinished business. Bang! Boom! The laser beams and lightning bolts clashed violently once again. While fleeing, Aang turned to look at Teacher Zephyr and whispered, "Teacher Zephyr, I will avenge you in the future, the beast pirates. Just you wait." His current strength was still very weak, but even if his power wasn't immense in the future, Aang intended to relentlessly torment the beast pirates. On Redfield's side, at his signal, one of his pirate subordinates understood and poured him a glass of red wine. Redfield leisurely enjoyed his red wine, observing the two battlefields, Katakuri against Zephyr and Enel against Kizaru. Now, all he needed to do was ensure the Dynastone was safely transported onto the ship. His mission would be complete. Seeing this, Kizaru, with a sly yet mocking expression, said, "How terrifying, Lord Redfield. Even in such a tense battle environment, you can still leisurely drink red wine. Mr. Enel, you're not like that. Damn Kizaru." Enel was seething with anger. This Kizaru was simply being incompetent. His own strength was indeed inferior to this scoundrel Kizaru. Otherwise, he wouldn't have appeared so passive. He also knew that this scoundrel Kizaru was trying to sow discord. Enel wasn't stupid either. That Redfield guy was the strongest person besides Lord Kaido. If Enel also possessed such immense power, he could do whatever he wanted. As long as he didn't provoke Lord Kaido. As for the others, Enel would be a god. Seeing that his attempt to sow discord had failed, Kizaru didn't bother to pay attention. He hadn't planned for it to succeed anyway, but at least he had disgusted Enel. With that, Kizaru's objective was achieved. 10 minutes later, the Marines had all retreated. Kizaru seized the opportunity and fled as well. Zephyr, however, didn't possess the Pika Pika no Mi Devil Fruit ability like Kizaru, and the result was obvious. He was captured by the Beast Pirates. The scene then showed Kizaru running, and Enel chasing after Zephyr, transferring his key energy to him. Zephyr lay exhausted on the ground, defeated once again, his eyes having lost their light. Enel didn't even bother to look at him, saying, "Old man, this is the consequence of opposing our beast pirates. Seeing us coming, why don't you surrender quickly instead of resisting? You don't know your limits." Redfield, the person in charge, stepped forward and said, "Prepare to return to the starting point. Bring Zephyr back with us. After all, he was a former Marine, so he still has value." Killing Zephyr now was possible, but it wouldn't maximize their benefits. They just needed Zephyr alive. That way, they could use Zephyr to intimidate the Marines. If the Marines ignored them, they could use this as leverage to attack them. This was a gamble where they held the initiative. Katakuri didn't say anything about this. He wasn't in charge, so he just followed along to carry out the mission. Conversely, Enel wasn't just muttering angrily. He was mainly humiliated by Kizaru's despicable antics. This made Enel extremely embarrassed, as he felt deeply ashamed. Zephyr, lying on the ground, slowly regained his composure, saying helplessly, "Kaido, he's a jinx for the Marines." As a Marine, Zephyr naturally knew how terrifying the impact Kaido brought. Otherwise, Zephyr wouldn't have intended to use the Dynastone to ambush and kill Kaido. Now that he'd failed, it was all over. Kizaru, along with Hina and the Marine soldiers, returned to Marineford, the Marine headquarters. Kizaru entered the Admiral's office, where Garp and Vice Admiral Tsuru were also present. Kyuzen looked at Kizaru and asked, "Kizaru, please give us a detailed report of the situation." 10 minutes later, both Garp and Vice Admiral Tsuru's faces darkened. Vice Admiral Tsuru said in a low voice, "Zephyr has been captured by the Beast Pirates. This time, we've not only lost the Dynastone, but we might also be tricked by Kaido using Zephyr to lure us into stopping." Disgusting, Kaido of the Beast Pirates. "I'll fight my way to Wano to rescue Zephyr." Garp was heartbroken. He had lost his comrade Sengoku, and now he was about to lose Zephyr as well. Kyuzen hastily reminded him, "Mr. Garp, you need to calm down. Right now, Kaido is not someone you or I can handle. Not to mention Redfield, Big Mom Charlotte Linlin, and a group of powerful officers. As for how to deal with the Beast Pirates, we'll just have to wait for instructions from the world government. We Marines are powerless against the Beast Pirates. As for Kaido using Zephyr-sensei to deceive us, let him threaten us. Of course, we must do our best to protect Zephyr-sensei." Kyuzen spoke at length, expressing his many regrets. The Marines, in this era, are powerless against a group of pirates. It's truly laughable. But the truth is undeniable. The Marines are no match for the Beast Pirates. After sitting down, Kizaru poured himself a cup of tea, and with a humble expression, said, "I have a question." As Kizaru spoke, Kyuzen, Garp, and Tsuru all looked at him. As a long-standing and respected admiral, Kizaru surely had a different perspective. Of course, they knew Kizaru's suggestion might not be useful, but having a suggestion was better than having none at all. Kizaru didn't continue to feign ignorance and humbly said, "Recently, Kaido of the 100 Beasts seems to have moved very little. Normally, with his strength, he should be able to move freely anywhere. On the contrary, his subordinates have been quite active. To others, Kaido of the 100 Beasts should be unifying the entire new world as quickly as possible, but he hasn't yet. Therefore, I suspect that Kaido of the 100 Beasts is definitely plotting something. Otherwise, Kaido of the 100 Beasts wouldn't be so honest waiting in Wano country." This was also Kizaru's speculation up until now. Previously, Kaido of the 100 Beasts had only set out once, and that was to destroy the Red Hair Pirates. Excluding the period when he destroyed the Red Hair Pirates, Kaido of the 100 Beasts rarely engaged in any other activities. This completely doesn't make sense. With such immense power, and given that Kaido of the 100 Beasts is a man consumed by ambition, Kyuzen, Garp, and Suru all felt it made sense. Kaido of the 100 Beasts might indeed be plotting something. It's not impossible that he wouldn't act. The results were also non-existent. During this time, Kaido of the Beasts had been very inactive. If Kizaru hadn't reminded them, Kyuzen, Garp, and Suru wouldn't have even considered this point. Mainly, they were all deceived. Only someone as relatively lazy as Kizaru could notice this more quickly. Kyuzen tapped his fingers on the table and said, "What is Kaido of the Beasts planning in Wano country?" At this point, Kaido couldn't possibly be doing nothing. If Kaido of the Beasts didn't possess such immense power today, then based on the current progress, it would indeed be reasonable. The illogical part is that Kaido of the Beasts is incredibly powerful, clearly capable of sweeping across the new world, yet he hasn't acted. Garp opened a bag of donuts and started eating, as a way to relax. Garp took a few bites and then said, "Could it be that Kaido of the Beasts is increasing his own strength?" "How could that be? You should know Kaido of the Beast's strength is already." Vice Admiral Tsuru initially objected, but then suddenly felt it wasn't impossible. What if Kaido of the Beasts really was increasing his strength? Then the Marines wouldn't even be able to fight him. They might as well surrender. They simply couldn't win. Kyuzen and Borsalino instantly gasped in shock. If it was really as Mr. Garp said, that would be too terrifying. Kaido of the Beast's strength was already so exaggerated, and he could still increase it further. And he wouldn't let anyone else live. Kizaru, initially displaying a timid demeanor, instantly transformed into a terrified expression, exclaiming, "Don't scare the old man." Can Kaido, with his current strength, continue to increase? If it's really like this, I feel like the world government will be wiped out by Kaido of the Beast Pirates. It's only a matter of time. That's probably not the case. Kyuzen, unwilling to believe that Kaido of the Beast Pirates' strength could continue to increase, replied, "No matter what, we should first deal with how the Beast Pirates will use Master Zephyr. We need to prepare early, so we don't get caught off guard by the Beast Pirates. That would be troublesome." Kyuzen could only change the subject, avoiding further conversation about Kaido's strength, which could lead to problems. Even Kyuzen himself had a problem with his own mindset, so to avoid it, he decided not to discuss that topic. That's all. Kizaru, Garp, and Suru all had no objections. Initially, Garp and Suru had both planned how to deal with the situation regarding Zephyr's capture by the Beast Pirates. Vice Admiral Tsuru suggested, "Kyuzen, you should put pressure on the Gorosei. We can't face the Beast Pirates alone." "That's what I was planning as well," Kyuzen nodded in response. Kyuzen finished his task and immediately went to the Holy Land of Muriegewa to discuss the matter with the Gorosei and request their assistance. After all, the Navy was now powerless against the Beast Pirates. While traveling through Muriegewa, Kyuzen witnessed a terrifying scene. Bartholomew Kuma, a former Shichibukai warlord, was being treated like a slave, crawling on the ground, with a celestial dragon riding on his back. Kyuzen's anger flared up. The celestial dragon's actions were unacceptable to him. If it weren't for the need to discuss matters with the Gorosei, Kyuzen wouldn't have bothered going to Muriegewa. Seeing this scene, Kyuzen felt a shiver run down his spine. Mainly because Bartholomew Kuma was no weakling. Such a powerful individual had now become a slave mount for a celestial dragon. No one could have imagined this, and Kyuzen could only feel regret for Bartholomew Kuma. Saint Roswald, sitting atop Bartholomew Kuma, excitedly hammered the iron rod, saying, "What a magnificent slave! No matter how much you hit him, he won't utter a sound. Slaves should be like this. Unlike other slaves, who are completely useless, dying after only a few uses. Only durable slaves like this are good slaves. Saint Roswald, use him quickly. Once you've used him, we'll torture this durable slave too." The other celestial dragons sitting on their slaves also chimed in with similar reminders. Wano Country, Onigashima. With massive financial investment and the accelerated production by Caesar, Judge, and Queen, a large number of artificial soldiers were manufactured. On this day, Kaido devoured these numerous artificial soldiers, and as a large amount of life force surged into his body, Kaido's right eye's single Tamo Rinnegan once again transformed into a double Tamo Rinnegan. While his strength didn't increase significantly, his ocular power had risen by another 10%. Caesar, Judge, and Queen watched as Lord Kaido devoured the numerous artificial soldiers, unable to say anything. For they knew beforehand that their purpose in creating these artificial soldiers was to supply Lord Kaido. At this moment, Kaido said with satisfaction, "Very good. You've done well. Continue." "Yes, Lord Kaido." Caesar, Judge, and Queen all responded respectfully at the same time. Now, Lord Kaido is like heaven to them, especially Queen. He witnessed Lord Kaido's rapid increase in strength in the shortest time, so he was even more amazed. To be honest, Queen also imagined Lord Kaido's strength increasing so quickly, but Queen knew he couldn't do it himself, and it was impossible. After Kaido left, Caesar, Judge, and Queen all breathed a sigh of relief. While Lord Kaido was there, they didn't dare breathe loudly, fearing they would anger him, which could lead to instant death. Judge finally dared to voice his doubts. "Do you think Lord Kaido's increased strength is also due to devouring a large number of powerful individuals or artificial soldiers and so on?" Judge was skeptical, as were Caesar and Queen. After all, anyone who had been in contact with Lord Kaido for a long time knew that he devoured many people to create soldiers and powerful individuals. Even a fool could see the problem. Queen lit a cigar and slowly replied, "We shouldn't discuss whether Lord Kaido devours many people to increase his strength. That's simply beyond our ability to guess. Only by doing our job honestly can we succeed." Queen S's position was now very clear. Whatever task Lord Kaido assigned, they simply completed it. Anything else, there was no need to think about it, and it was meaningless. Caesar, on the other hand, swallowed hard and said, "That's absolutely true. We just need to follow Lord Kaido well, and then we can enjoy ourselves to the fullest in the future." Caesar spoke, then excitedly continued, "That's the kind of time I'm after. As long as Lord Kaido can ascend to the position of king of the world, then we'll all be veterans. We'll be able to enjoy all sorts of things." After Caesar finished his last words, Judge and Queen both understood his meaning. Having lived for so many years, they understood Caesar's intentions perfectly. And it was indeed true, following Lord Kaido meant a future of luxury and comfort, including the present, and even more so in the future. At the same time, the Dynastone was transported back to Wano on Onigashima. Redfield stood before Lord Kaido and respectfully reported, "Lord Kaido, we have returned all the Dynastones and captured former Admiral Zephyr. Lord Kaido, at that time we can use this to intimidate the Navy again before Admiral Zephyr arrives." You can arrange that." Kaido was very confident in Redfield's abilities. This Redfield guy could be said to be resourceful and cunning. Basically, Kaido didn't need to personally worry about it. At this moment, Zephyr was also brought forward, his whole body seemingly paralyzed. Big Mom Charlotte Lin laughed, saying, "Zephyr, we were once considered old rivals, and now you're in a really difficult situation. It seems the Navy is completely useless, with no threat left." Charlotte Lin. Haha. Zephyr forcefully took a breath and said, "Your good times won't last much longer. Do you think pirates can always be so arrogant? That's impossible. Justice will always triumph over evil. You bastard." Big Mom Charlotte Lin instantly became extremely annoyed upon hearing such words. If it weren't for Zephyr's usefulness, she would have wanted to kill him on the spot. Kaido gestured to Charlotte Lin not to get angry and calmly said, "Zephyr, you're right that justice will always triumph over evil, because only the victor is truly righteous. Evil parasites like the celestial dragons will sooner or later be brought down by me, Kaido." Zephyr's eyes widened in disbelief as he stared at Kaido, for he saw an unparalleled confidence in Kaido's gaze, as if destroying the celestial dragons was just a normal occurrence. Big Mom Charlotte Lin burst into laughter, saying, "Hey, did you hear that, Zephyr? You bastard, the world government will be destroyed by us sooner or later." Even the members of the Beast Pirates present believed this, thinking that their Beast Pirates would eventually destroy the world government, and Lord Kaido would become the king of this world. Kaido gestured with his hand and said, "Take Zephyr away." "Yes, Lord Kaido," the two pirate headliners escorting Zephyr respectfully replied. As Zephyr was being escorted away, He desperately shouted, "Kaido, you won't succeed. This world isn't for evil people like you to control. Justice will prevail. Shut up, old man. If you want to die, don't drag us down with you." The two headliners responsible for escorting the pirates instantly radiated murderous intent. This old man truly deserved to die. Big Mom Charlotte Lin inquired, "Kaido, should I go and give Zephyr a good torture session to shut him up? To make that old geezer quiet down a bit? It's unnecessary." Kaido basically ignored Zephyr's incompetent shouts. Only strength could suppress everything. 3 days later, on a small island somewhere in the New World, the NEO Marines who successfully escaped were there. Ain and Vince were lucky enough to survive, while Shuzo was killed. At this moment, Ain saw that Zephyr's life card had stopped burning. Initially, she thought Zephyr would be killed, but seeing that Zephyr wasn't, Ain hurriedly said, "Vince, Zephyr isn't dead, which means we have a chance to find a way to rescue him." Vince, upon hearing Ain's words, was momentarily stunned and retorted, "Ain, are you crazy? Trying to rescue Teacher Zephyr? That's the headquarters of the Beast Pirates. There are so many powerful individuals there. How can we possibly rescue Teacher Zephyr if we go there alone? It's simply suicide. Don't be so naive. Teacher Zephyr didn't let us escape by sending us into the lion's den again." Ain pointed her finger at Binz, loudly criticizing, "Are we just going to stand by and watch Teacher Zephyr suffer torture? Binz, are you still Teacher Zephyr's student?" "How am I not Teacher Zephyr's student?" Binz, equally displeased after hearing this, replied, "What I mean is, Teacher Zephyr sacrificed himself to allow us to escape. If we go to Wano, wouldn't that be a pointless sacrifice for Teacher Zephyr? I understand your desire to rescue Teacher Zephyr, but our strength is simply too meager. Going to Wano to try and rescue him would be suicidal." Binz understood Ain's desire to rescue Teacher Zephyr, but not in this blind, suicidal way. Normally, Ain was quite intelligent, but because of Teacher Zephyr's situation, she had become so brainless. In Binz's opinion, Ain was currently completely brainless. Ain said with unwavering determination, "I know that going to Wano is a suicidal act. If Teacher Zephyr dies, I have no intention of living either. My life was saved by Teacher Zephyr's camp. Now that Teacher Zephyr is suffering, I can't just sit idly by. Even if there's only a 1 in 10,000 chance of rescuing him, I want to try. Ain, you." Vince couldn't help but shake his head. He didn't know what to say about this kind of thing. Currently, within the Neo Marines, Ain could be said to be Master Zephyr's most outstanding student and also his strongest student. He and Shuzo were both inferior to Ain, but at this moment, it was even more crucial to remain calm and not blindly rush to their deaths. Ain retrieved Teacher Zephyr's life card and said, "Binz, I only have one request." "Speak," Binz replied. Ain continued, "I'll go to Wano alone to see if I can find a way to rescue Teacher Zephyr. You contact Marine Headquarters. Only by relying on the Marine Headquarters' strength will the chances of successfully rescuing Teacher Zephyr be greater. Especially since Vice Admiral Garp and Vice Admiral Tsuru are both old friends of Teacher Zephyr." In fact, Ain wasn't brainless. On the contrary, he was quite intelligent. The reason he acted so impulsively this time was because of Teacher Zephyr's life-saving favor from years ago. As he said earlier, even if there was only a 1 in 10,000 chance, Ain wanted to try. Even if it meant sacrificing his life, he wouldn't regret it. Since Ain had said this much, Binz had no reason to refuse. After all, Binz also wanted to save Professor Zephyr. Binz said, "I know. Leave the contact with the Navy to me. Now, your Marshal Kuzan is also Professor Zephyr's teacher, so he shouldn't abandon Professor Zephyr. Then let's split up and act now." After replying, Ain looked at the group of Neo-Navy soldiers and said, "If it really doesn't work, Binz, you can also rejoin the Navy with the Neo-Navy. Single-handedly, we can't lead the NEO Navy to continue towards our goal." "All right," Binz nodded in response. Ain put on his equipment and went outside. After Ain left, Binz reluctantly stood up and whispered hopefully, "I hope you can survive, Ain. Nothing unexpected should happen, otherwise Teacher Zephyr will be even more heartbroken." Binz knew that Ain's chances of survival on this trip to Wano were basically less than 1%, but Binz could only hope, because he was also powerless, right on Fishman Island. The Straw Hat Pirates received a piece of news concerning them. Because of this news, everyone in the Straw Hat Pirates gathered together to discuss it. Luffy, eating grilled meat, suspiciously asked, "What was that phone call about? What is the Supernova Alliance?" Luffy himself hadn't figured out what the so-called Supernova Alliance was, but his crewmates seemed to understand, which is why he asked. No one was surprised by Luffy's question, as that's just how he is. Sanji lit a cigarette and said thoughtfully, "It seems we're under immense pressure this time, as supernovas in the New World. No, how could they even think of using Fishman Island to exploit us before we've even entered the New World? That's right, an alliance can give us more space to survive." Usopp agreed with Sanji's words. Frankie looked at the group and asked, "So what should we do now?" From the conversation just now, besides our Straw Hat Pirates, it seems like all the other supernova groups have agreed to join. That's probably because the pressure in the New World is too great. Dezana stated her opinion, suggesting that this supernova alliance would definitely lead to their formation. It must be because the pressure in the New World is too great. Otherwise, how could they form an alliance when they re all enemies? There must be some reason, and that's the immense pressure. Chopper said worriedly, "This kind of thing feels really dangerous. Once we form an alliance, we won't be able to make our own decisions about our actions." Chopper's right, I feel the same way. Alliances are so multifaceted. What if we get tricked? Usopp also expressed his concerns. After all, if it were just two factions forming an alliance, that would be a bit better. But this is a multifaceted pirate alliance. The danger and unknowns will increase dramatically. Although Usopp isn't strong, he still has a brain. Brook chimed in, "Maybe joining this so-called Supernova Alliance isn't such a bad thing after all. At least it can provide some warmth and support." Of course, the problem will also be big. Disagreements will be a major factor, especially since our Captain Luffy isn't someone who easily integrates into the team's strategy. Brook's words certainly received everyone's agreement. Their Captain Luffy is carefree, playful, and very righteous. These are all positive attributes. The problem is, once Luffy makes a decision, it's impossible to change his mind. So when the so-called Supernova Alliance comes along, there will definitely be disagreements among the captains. And that's when the problem arises. At this moment, Luffy finally finished eating the grilled meat in his hand and asked doubtfully, "Everyone, isn't that Supernova Alliance very interesting? Since it's so interesting, let's join." What? Dezano was speechless for a moment after hearing this. Couldn't they clarify the situation before making a decision? Dezana instantly changed her tone and said, "Luffy, even as the captain, you can't just make decisions arbitrarily. Such important matters require the opinions of all of us." "I agree." Zoro raised his hand in agreement with Dezana's words. After all, letting Luffy make decisions like that felt very unreliable. At least, Dezana said that a decision should be made after considering everyone's opinions, which would be most beneficial to the Straw Hat Pirates. Sanji became serious and said, "We used to have 11 supernovas, but now we only have 10 left. One of them, Drake, was already eliminated by the Beast Pirates. There are 10 supernovas remaining. Our Straw Hat Pirates occupy 2, and Kids Pirates also occupy 2. That leaves the Heart Pirates, Hawkins Pirates, Abbo's Pirates, Fire Tank Pirates, Bonnie's Pirates, and Monster Tank Pirates. A total of 8 pirate crews have formed an alliance, and the proposal was made by the 3 existing allied crews, Kids Pirates, Abbo's Pirates, and Hawkins Pirates." Frankie nodded slightly and said, "That's true. With so many pirate crews combined, it's very easy for problems to arise. If problems occur, we might get bogged down in trouble. Therefore, we don't need to join that so-called Supernova Pirate Alliance. It's too dangerous for us." Usopp immediately jumped out to voice his opinion. "Anyway, it's better not to get involved in that kind of dangerous situation. At the very least, they can protect themselves. The most important thing is that nothing unexpected happens to the Straw Hat Pirates." Usopp thought so too. After all, safety and survival come first. Brook said, "But if we don't agree to join the Supernova Alliance, they'll probably consider us outcasts later, won't they?" "That would be quite interesting." "What are you talking about?" Luffy, on the other hand, grumbled, "After all this time, we're just not joining that Supernova Alliance. It's so hard to hear something interesting, and to just let it go would be a real shame." Anyway, as the captain, if other supernovas are joining the alliance, then we should join too. I want to become the Pirate King. How can I fall behind the other supernovas? The answer is definitely no. Straw Hat Luffy's voice grew louder at the end. In an instant, everyone was speechless, knowing Luffy was about to do something foolish. At the same time, somewhere in the New World, on an island town besides the Straw Hat Pirates, all the other supernova pirate crews had gathered there. This matter couldn't be taken lightly, so they assembled very quickly. There was no other way. In order to secure a sliver of space for survival in the New World, Kid S' temper flared up instantly, and he angrily shouted, "That Straw Hat Kid, what do you say? Do you agree to join the Supernova Alliance or not?" For now, it's still unclear. We can only confirm that the Straw Hat Pirates are on Fishman Island. Trafalgar Law replied lazily, leaning back in his chair. Capone Beach, smoking a cigar, said, "The Straw Hat Pirates are already a problematic pirate crew. Bringing them in might not necessarily be a good thing. It could even cause trouble." Capone Beach had already dealt with the Straw Hat Pirates, so he knew they were a bunch of troublemakers. Their formation of the Supernova Alliance was for more space to survive in the New World, not to cause trouble everywhere. If they were going to cause trouble everywhere, it would be better not to form the Supernova Alliance at all. Trafalgar Law then lazily added, however, the Straw Hat Pirates' overall strength is quite good. With them joining the Supernova Alliance, our strength will also increase significantly. Trafalgar Law, are you saying our strength isn't enough? Apo, standing nearby, instantly understood. Everyone was a supernova. Why were they making this kind of ranking system? This greatly annoyed Apo, especially since Trafalgar Law just said this. It wasn't simply Apo who had an opinion. Kid felt the same way. He himself was a hot-tempered person, and he considered himself the strongest member of the supernova team. Hawkins, however, calmly reminded them, "You guys shouldn't argue. Our purpose in gathering here is to form a supernova alliance for survival, not to start a civil war. In this new world, is there still space for everyone to live?" "That's true. Going there now would be embarrassing for us," Bonnie replied truthfully. Of course, Bonnie's words were relatively subtle, not too blunt. If he had been too direct, some people in the arena would have definitely jumped up first. The burly, monstrous monkeyrers chuckled and said, "The Straw Hat Pirates just replied that they'll think about it a bit more, and they didn't directly refuse. So we either wait for their reply or we can go over and ask for confirmation later." Apo poured himself a glass of wine and drank it in large gulps, saying, "You should know, one of our supernovas was wiped out by the Beast Pirates. That Drake Pirates." As Apo said this, he recalled that he had also considered joining the Beast Pirates before, but after hearing about Drake's demise, he became wary. If the Beast Pirates didn't accept Drake, a Zoan Devil Fruit user, wouldn't they be even less likely to accept him, since he wasn't a Zoan Devil Fruit user? Previously, it was because of this fear that Apo was afraid to join the Beast Pirates. What if he got killed? Apo was also afraid, so he ended up wandering around the New World, eventually forming the current Supernova Alliance. After Apo mentioned that the Drake Pirates had been wiped out by the Beast Pirates, everyone's expressions began to change. Everyone knew that the New World was ultimately dominated by the Beast Pirates. Even the Whitebeard Pirates were in a precarious situation, and it was uncertain when they might be attacked. Trafalgar Law said with a grim expression, "Just the current strength of the Beast Pirates is enough to send shivers down one's spine." Leaving aside the Beast Pirates members, there's Enel, the user of the Goro Goro no Mi, and the legendary figure Redfield, as well as the Yonko Big Mom's crew, and even Kaido, the super monster of the Beast Pirates. Alas, the only ones who can stop them are probably the combined forces of the Navy and the world government. If things go wrong, even the world government might lose to the Beast Pirates and will be nothing. Trafalgar Law currently has only one goal, to find an opportunity to kill Doflamingo. Otherwise, he wouldn't have agreed to join this so-called Supernova Alliance. After all, that bastard Doflamingo is backed by the Beast Pirates. Trafalgar Law knows that with his own strength, it's incredibly difficult to kill Doflamingo. But rallying these people wasn't necessarily a sure thing. Even with Doflamingo backing the Beast Pirates, Trafalgar Law felt he had a chance to kill Doflamingo. As for whether he'd be held accountable by the Beast Pirates later, that didn't matter. Achieving his goal was what mattered. As for the lives of these people, Trafalgar Law didn't care. The supernovas here all looked at Trafalgar Law. In truth, each of them had their own agenda, which was why they agreed to join this supernova alliance. Without an agenda, who would join? The pressure from the beast pirates in the New World was one thing, but it was more about their own individual interests. When external pressure was too great, they'd band together for warmth first and deal with the rest later. After dealing with the big boss, it was all about dividing the spoils. That's how it is with pirates, without benefits. Who would cooperate with you? Bonnie, with pizza still in her mouth, said, "Since we set sail, I never imagined that we could form an alliance with other supernovas. It's really interesting." Their expressions will be very interesting when the Navy receives this news. Is that all you think about? Boring woman. Capone Beach silently looked at Bonnie. Are all women just big-breasted and brainless? Joining the Supernova Alliance because of such a simple idea. Capone Beach simply couldn't understand Bonnie's way of thinking. Hawkins, displaying his Carol card, reminded her the Red Hair Pirates were destroyed by Kaido of the Beast Pirates. Do you think our Supernova Alliance's strength can surpass that of the Red Hair Pirates? Hawkins threw out an even more critical problem, essentially defining the direction of their Supernova Alliance's actions. They couldn't just form an alliance and do nothing. What was the point of having an alliance then? Now that Hawkins had raised this issue, it was the most serious problem everyone present had to face. Once their alliance was established, it absolutely needed a goal and direction. This was also the crucial strategic direction for forming an alliance. Appo took a sip of his drink and said, "What do you think? How about our Supernova Alliance forming a cooperative relationship with the Whitebeard Pirates? That way, we'll have the strength to resist the Beast Pirates, and we won't have to worry about them." Trafalgar Law whispered, "The Whitebeard Pirates?" Everyone's reactions were different. It's worth noting that even before Kaido of the Beast Pirates became powerful, the Whitebeard Pirates were considered the strongest pirate crew. Whitebeard himself was also known as the strongest man in the world, but this kind of constantly multifaceted cooperation, while seemingly powerful, was actually as fragile as a paper tiger. Kid also took a big gulp of sake and said, "With all this back and forth, shouldn't we also cooperate with the 7 warlords of the sea to deal with the Beast Pirates? We supernovas forming a pirate alliance would be enough." Kid had another idea. If they formed a supernova alliance, he would have a chance to be the leader. After all, everyone had the highest bounty among them. What if they cooperated with the Whitebeard Pirates? So, is Kid going to become someone else's subordinate? This kind of thing isn't acceptable to Kid. From beginning to end, he never thought about being someone else's subordinate. If he wanted to be someone, he wanted to be the boss. Of course, everyone here doesn't know Kid's intentions right now. If they knew Kid wanted to be their boss, they would have already started fighting. Who here isn't a captain? Capone Beach tapped his gray cigar, shook his head, and said, "Cooperating with the Whitebeard Pirates might be a possibility, but becoming a warlord is out of the question. It's unrealistic." Not to mention the warlord's background is the world government, and they're all multifaceted organizations, unlike the Whitebeard Pirates, where Whitebeard alone makes all the decisions. On the other hand, Trafalgar Law is one of the 7 warlords of the sea. If news of this gets out from our alliance, do you think Trafalgar Law can still hold onto his position as a warlord? After Capone Beach's words, it really was true. This guy Trafalgar Law is currently a member of the 7 warlords of the sea, but everyone instinctively ignored it. Their main attention was drawn to the Beast Pirates, leading to them not giving much thought to other matters. Trafalgar Law's tone became serious as he said, "Okay, we don't need to drag things out like this. Let's first settle the matter of our Supernova Alliance." I agree with what Trafalgar Law said. "We should first settle the matter of our alliance," Bonnie said, supporting Trafalgar Law's statement. Right now, these people here haven't even officially decided on the alliance relationship, and they've already dragged things out so far. What's the point of a Supernova Alliance then? Bonnie couldn't stand it anymore after all the trouble they've caused. Yuruj reminded him, "Shouldn't we call the Straw Hat Pirates to confirm?" "Never mind, the Straw Hat Pirates haven't responded yet, so we can't really decide. Whether they refuse or agree, at least we can continue pursuing the Alliance project." Trafalgar Law picked up the phone and said helplessly, "I'll make this call." In fact, Trafalgar Law's original intention was to hope that the Straw Hat Pirates would also join their Supernova Alliance. With their arrival, their strength could increase significantly, and at crucial moments, they might even play a decisive role. Kid glanced at Trafalgar Law, then chuckled and said, "Ha ha ha, Trafalgar Law, from now on, you'll be the liaison officer for our Supernova Alliance. It might be a good fit. Kid, do you want to fight me to see who's stronger?" Trafalgar Law, unfamiliar with Kid, retorted immediately. The hot-tempered Kid slammed his hand on the table and angrily shouted, "A fight? Perfect. Let me see your strength, Trafalgar Law. Can you two please be quiet? Disgusting." Bonnie couldn't help but yell angrily. Couldn't they just talk things out? Why did they have to make such a fuss at the slightest thing? In Bonnie's opinion, this was a big problem. Capone Beach, on the other hand, calmly smoked his cigar because he had already anticipated this kind of thing. Even among allies, especially multiple allies, there would inevitably be someone wanting to show off their superiority. If there weren't, that would be truly strange. Kid, behind Killer, reminded him, "Kid, don't act rashly." Kid and Trafalgar Law were relatively rational and didn't act rashly. After all, they both understood the pros and cons. If they acted blindly, they would only lose themselves. They weren't that stupid. The Supernova Alliance and the Straw Hat Pirates once again established contact. Beep beep beep. Trafalgar Law made a call through the doppelganger, while the other supernovas sat around. Kid grumbled, "That Straw Hat bastard, he's still so arrogant. He's so slow at this." Trafalgar Law motioned for Kid to be quiet, as the call had connected. Moses, this is Dezana from the Straw Hat Pirates." Dezana's voice came through the doppelganger. Trafalgar Law got straight to the point, asking, "Where is the Straw Hat leader? Does he agree to join the Supernova Alliance?" Right now, Trafalgar Law and his crew were most concerned about whether the Straw Hat Pirates would join the Supernova Alliance, as only the Straw Hat Pirates remained without a decision. Before Dezana's voice could even reach the inside of the dynamo, Luffy's shouts rang out first, joining the Supernova Alliance. I agree. Dezana immediately roared, "Shut up, Luffy. You have no right to speak here. Just shut up. We haven't agreed." Usopp's voice followed. Suddenly, the supernovas present all widened their eyes in surprise. Was this really a captain? How could he feel so out of place? Was Luffy's status within the Straw Hat Pirates so low? It was simply unbelievable. Dezana said to the Dynamo, regarding the Supernova Alliance, "We, the Straw Hat Pirates, will not participate." "Sorry, I just heard the Straw Hat leader say he's willing to join, so we must also be willing to join." Trafalgar Law wouldn't give Dezana a chance either. After saying that, he hung up the phone, no matter what. First, he dragged the Straw Hat Pirates down with him. On the Straw Hat Pirate side, Dezana saw the phone being hung up by the other party, and her anger instantly flared up. She had clearly refused, yet the other party had seized on Luffy's agreement. It was utterly disgusting. Completely lacking in martial ethics, as the navigator of the Straw Hat Pirates, Dezana felt like she was truly heartbroken, especially Captain Luffy. "Fine, do whatever you want." Dezana felt physically and mentally exhausted. Usopp, with his hands wrapped around his head and his eyes vacant, said, "Oh my god, have we been tricked? We're doomed. That so-called Supernova Alliance is completely unreliable. Things have already happened. Getting impatient is useless." Sanji, on the other hand, was relatively calm, saying joining the Supernova Alliance is fine. "Whether we're worthy or not, the initiative is still in our own hands." That's right. That Supernova Alliance must be very interesting. Straw Hat Luffy showed an excited smile. He was looking forward to such interesting things. Dezana silently looked at Luffy and said, "Luffy, do you know that you and Trafalgar Law have tricked us all?" Luffy, Chopper replied, tears welling up in his eyes. At the same time, on the Supernova Alliance side, everyone showed a strange expression. They had just heard the Straw Hat Pirates arguing in the telepathic communication. They had never seen a captain with such a low status in their pirate crew. In an instant, their perceptions were completely changed. Kid couldn't help but burst out laughing, saying, "Ha ha ha, that Straw Hat idiot. I thought Straw Hat Luffy had some skill, but now it seems he's nothing special. Hawkins, fiddling with his carol deck, chimed in, "Indeed, the overall style of the Straw Hat Pirates is truly unique, eye-opening, and quite remarkable." Appo looked at Trafalgar Law and said with a smile, "That's great. You really tricked the Straw Hat Pirates just now. But the way you did it suited my taste." After all, according to Appo, pirates don't need to be so rigid. Tricking people is as easy as pie. Yorish also looked towards Trafalgar Law, saying, "However, there's also a hidden danger. I guess the Straw Hat Pirates will hold a grudge against you, Trafalgar Law. It doesn't matter, as long as the matter can be resolved." Trafalgar Law now didn't care about himself anymore. As long as he could kill Doflamingo and take revenge, everything else was fine. Even if it meant losing his life, he wouldn't regret it. Bonnie said with some admiration, "I didn't realize it. Trafalgar Law, you're quite skilled. You're the first to contribute to the Supernova Alliance." Capone Beach lit a cigar for himself and slowly said, "Although the methods are somewhat despicable, this is the law of pirate survival. Now that the Supernova Alliance is officially formed, we must announce it to the whole world." However, the expressions on the faces of the Straw Hat Pirates members will surely be those of excitement. Capone Beach couldn't help but laugh after saying those last words. After all, this was the first time he'd ever seen a pirate crew of that kind. Bonnie took a few bites of her pizza, saying, "That's quite an idea for a pirate crew. I really want to see them. I wonder what kind of interactions they usually have." "What? You, a female pirate, are curious about that kind of thing?" Capone Beach, puffing on his cigar, glanced dismissively at Bonnie. Initially, Capone Beach had a slight dislike for Bonnie, but he couldn't openly express it at this time. Doing so would definitely be inconsistent with the current relationship within the Supernova Alliance. However, Bonnie noticed Capone Beach's displeasure. Since Capone Beach didn't say anything, Bonnie didn't expose him either. After all, there was no need to be so formal. Since they had already formed the Supernova Alliance, they would inevitably see each other again in the future. Capone Beach also realized that Bonnie had discovered his intentions, but as an old fox, he didn't reveal it. There was no need. The next day, a news report spread throughout the world concerning the alliance formed by the Supernovas. At Marineford, in Admiral Akane's office, Sakazuki, smoking a cigar, glared at the newspaper on his desk. Sakazuki clenched his fists, sparks flying from them, and angrily shouted, "Those little brats, jumping up at this moment, they're simply tired of living." Sakazuki's anger stemmed from the fact that the Marine headquarters was in a passive position, not to mention facing the formidable Kaido of the 100 Beasts. And now a bunch of little brats had suddenly appeared. If it weren't for the fact that there was no other way, Sakazuki would have personally led a team to wipe out those troublemaking brats. At this moment, a Marine Lieutenant Colonel approached and respectfully reported, "Admiral Sakazuki, we have received news that the Blackbeard Pirates have made their latest move." "The Blackbeard Pirates? Then what about the Beast Pirates?" Sakazuki's greatest concern right now was the Beast Pirates. As long as Kaido of the Beast Pirates was alive, Sakazuki felt like he would be haunted for life. The Marine Lieutenant Colonel respectfully continued to report, "From what we've seen so far, the Beast Pirates haven't made any new moves. Of course, we can't rule out the possibility that they're secretly operating, and we haven't been able to sense it." "All right, I understand." Sakazuki waved his hand, signaling the Marine Lieutenant Colonel to leave. After the Lieutenant Colonel left, Sakazuki lit another cigar and fell into deep thought. During this time, Sakazuki's mind was preoccupied with only one thing: how to kill Kaido of the 100 Beasts. The most important strategic direction the Navy must pursue right now is to concentrate its forces in the New World and gradually eliminate the pirates, not to remain cowardly in the first half of the Grand Line, Marineford. How can we possibly eliminate the pirates under these circumstances, especially Kaido, the Beast King? Even if it meant making many sacrifices, as long as they could kill Kaido of the 100 Beasts, it would all be worth it, according to Sakazuki. No matter what, the fact that all the supernovas had directly united to form an alliance meant that this force was equally formidable. It had to be given high priority. Otherwise, those little brats of the Supernova Alliance would cause trouble, and the Marines would have a headache for a long time. Now, Sakazuki could be said to be the most powerful person below the Admiral, and the Gorosei had given him the authority to build a special team independent of Sakazuki's control. Even Kyuzan was powerless against this, and Sakazuki was even more resentful. Normally, the Admiral's throne should rightfully belong to him. In the Admiral's office, Kyuzan frowned as he looked at the news regarding the Supernova Alliance. This matter could be big or small. If the Supernova Alliance caused trouble, it would be a major problem. The issue was that the Supernova Alliance still had a member of the 7 Warlords of the Sea. This was giving Kyuzan a headache. He had finally managed to recruit a member, and now this unexpected turn of events had occurred. Without a doubt, Trafalgar Law was planning to expel the 7 Warlords of the Sea. Kyuzan leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling, and sighed helplessly, saying, "What kind of cursed era is this? Since I took over as Admiral, this has been the most difficult era in the past 800 years. Problems keep arising. Admiral Sengoku even told me that the Roger era was the most troublesome era of great pirates. So I'm experiencing Kaido's era. What is that? Alright, let's not think too much about it. Let's take it one step at a time." Actually, Kyuzan knew that the chances of the Navy successfully changing the situation were extremely small. Basically, there was no way to do it. They were just holding on. As Admiral Kyuzan, he could see this clearly, but he couldn't say it out loud, otherwise it would affect the morale and fighting spirit of the entire Navy. Of course, it wasn't completely hopeless. It just depended on whether the world government was willing to unleash its true killer move against Kaido of the 100 Beasts. If things continued like this, even if the world government were destroyed by Kaido of the 100 Beasts, Kyuzan wouldn't be surprised. A week later, the Straw Hat Pirates, having entered the New World, arrived at the temporary headquarters of the Supernova Alliance. The Straw Hat Pirates all had grim expressions, except for Luffy, whose face was full of curiosity. Unlike Luffy, the others knew they had been tricked and forcibly dragged into this mess. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gotten involved in this mess. After all, they couldn't predict what kind of predicament they might face later. Warring was inevitable. Following the Straw Hat Pirates' arrival, they all sat together. Kid immediately took the lead in mocking them, saying, "Straw Hat Kid, you pirates are pretty useless." In Kid's opinion, a captain like Luffy was simply a disgrace, unable to even control his own crew. Of course, as for the internal discord within the Straw Hat Pirates, Kid didn't care about that. The other supernovas hadn't provoked Luffy, so it wasn't necessary. There was no conflict of interest, no need to create animosity. Everyone was intelligent. Straw Hat Luffy's eyes instantly locked onto Kid, shouting, "You hedgehog-like guy? You want to fight, huh? Come on then, who's afraid of whom? You trashy pirate captain." Kid also stood up directly, not putting Straw Hat Luffy in his eyes at all. Appo, watching the spectacle, didn't mind the big commotion, laughing heartily, "Ha ha ha, then let's fight. Let us see your strength. After all, you have the highest bounties among the supernovas. We have to see if you have the strength." Following Appo's words, more or less everyone was eager to fight. Indeed, Kid and Straw Hat Luffy were the two with the highest bounties among the supernovas. Whether they truly possess any real skill remains to be seen. They are all unyielding individuals. How could they possibly consider themselves inferior to others? Kid's expression darkened as he looked at Appo. This scoundrel was definitely doing this on purpose, but it suited Kid's intentions. Kid had initially wanted to test the strength of Straw Hat Luffy. Seeing Kid and Straw Hat Luffy about to fight, Trafalgar Law spoke up, saying, "The two of you shouldn't continue this conflict. Continuing this conflict will not benefit anyone present. After all, forming the Supernova Alliance wasn't easy, so we must cherish it. Furthermore, our reputation has already spread. If we start a civil war now, the losses will outweigh the gains." Trafalgar Law didn't want Straw Hat Luffy and Kid to fight. He also wanted to exploit the Supernova Alliance to achieve his goals. If his plan were ruined because of these trivial matters, Trafalgar Law would be extremely furious. Therefore, no matter what, he had to keep these two in check. Kid's anger also subsided. After all, a real fight would indeed negatively impact the reputation of the entire Supernova Alliance. Straw Hat Luffy felt a little regretful, having originally thought he could have a good fight. Dezana whispered, "I knew it. This so-called Supernova Alliance is basically a mess, full of problems everywhere." "Miss Dezana, since we're already here, we should try to avoid trouble," Sanji whispered. Dizana nodded slightly. He knew that having such a captain as a human trap was enough. They couldn't afford to fall into the trap, especially since these people were all supernovas. Hawkins, fiddling with Carol's deck, reminded her, Trafalgar Law, didn't you say earlier that the Straw Hat Pirates were coming and you had a plan to announce? Now the Straw Hat Pirates have arrived. Apple also looked at Trafalgar Law and said, That's right. You can tell us the plan so we can all discuss it. If it's feasible, then we'll proceed. Bonnie, Capone Beach, Uruj, and the others all looked at Trafalgar Law, as he had previously suggested waiting for the Straw Hat Pirates to arrive before making the announcement. Zoro, Sanji, Frankie, and the rest of the Straw Hat crew were equally curious, wondering what the plan was. Why wait until they arrived to make the announcement? But they also knew that it was absolutely not a simple matter. Otherwise, Trafalgar Law wouldn't have waited until now to make this announcement. Trafalgar Law glanced at the crowd before slowly saying, One of the purposes of forming this supernova alliance is to have a better living space in the new world, and at the same time, to seek opportunities for development. And my proposal is to first target Doflamingo, one of the 7 warlords of the sea. As soon as these words were spoken, many people here instantly tensed up. They weren't afraid of Doflamingo, but they were afraid of the person behind Doflamingo. That was Kaido of the Beasts. Apple exclaimed in panic, Trafalgar Law, you shouldn't be causing trouble. Don't tell us you don't know that Doflamingo has Kaido, the Beast Pirates, behind him. Dealing with the Whitebeard Pirates or the Blackbeard Pirates is understandable, but Appo is right. That's too risky. Urush also agreed with Appo. After all, dealing with Doflamingo wasn't difficult. The problem is that Kaido, the Beast King, is still around. They weren't that thick-headed, running off to confront Doflamingo only to be wiped out by Kaido of the Beasts. Bonnie looked at Trafalgar Law with suspicion, questioning, Are you planning to drag us all down with you? And then be killed by Kaido of the Beasts? Following Bonnie's words, everyone looked at Trafalgar Law with worry eyes, as if he were a traitor to the Supernova Alliance. This included the Straw Hat Pirates, who had been forced to join this so-called Supernova Alliance and tricked by Trafalgar Law. Therefore, they had to be wary of him. Trafalgar Law had anticipated this situation, so he calmly said, I know, everyone is probably skeptical of what I'm saying right now, but please listen to what I have to say. Dealing with Doflamingo is something I've carefully considered. Doflamingo is indeed Kaido's subordinate, but the Whitebeard Pirates and the Blackbeard Pirates certainly don't want to see the Beast Pirates grow even bigger. However, it seems neither side is willing to be the leader, so we'll be the ones to take the lead. But we can't directly attack the Beast Pirates. Instead, we'll target Doflamingo, their partner. This will indirectly create an opportunity for the Whitebeard Pirates and the Blackbeard Pirates, including the Navy and the world government, to deal with the Beast Pirates. No need to guess. Everyone knows that the ones who most want to destroy the Beast Pirates are definitely the Navy and the world government. After we defeat Doflamingo, we'll immediately withdraw, thereby taking advantage of the chaos to find our own opportunity. After hearing Trafalgar Law's plan, everyone pondered for a moment. While the plan sounded plausible, it also had flaws, especially old foxes like Appo and Capone Beach, who instantly spotted the loopholes. Capone Beach, puffing on his cigar, his gaze fixed on Trafalgar Law, asked, This plan seems feasible, but the risks involved are also high. You should be well aware of that, Trafalgar Law. And we are the Supernova Alliance. We generally have to consider everyone's interests. If the risks are too great, we must cancel the action. As an old fox, Capone Beach vaguely sensed that Trafalgar Law's proposal wasn't as simple as it seemed, but he couldn't figure out the reason. However, since there was something suspicious, he decided to stabilize things first. He didn't care about the interests of others. He only cared about his own. Appo, similarly, followed up with a question. That's right. Trafalgar Law, what is the ultimate goal of your proposal? Unintentionally provoking Kaido of the Beast Pirates isn't a wise choice. If we make the first move, the Whitebeard Pirates, the Blackbeard Pirates, the Navy, and the world government won't react, and the ones who suffer will be our Supernova Alliance. Both Capone Beach and Appo felt that Trafalgar Law's proposal wasn't entirely sound, so they both voiced their opposition. Though they didn't explicitly state it, everyone understood their meaning. After Capone Beach and Appo each offered their suggestions, Trafalgar Law's hidden gaze instantly darkened. If this opportunity failed, there might not be another chance later. Currently, Trafalgar Law only has one belief left to inherit: to kill Doflamingo. Yurish, with a smiling face, inquired, "So, everyone, please feel free to share your better ideas. After all, we are now in an alliance, and a plan of action needs majority agreement." Yurish didn't intend to express his own opinion, but rather planned to see what others thought first. After all, being the first to make a suggestion isn't a good thing, so being cautious is definitely the best approach. Bonnie, on the other hand, waved her hand indicating, "I have no suggestions. You can discuss it yourselves, and if it suits you, I'll agree." Kid glanced at Trafalgar Law before averting his gaze and saying, "In my opinion, we should attack the Blackbeard pirates, devour their power, and enhance our reputation." There was something else Kid didn't say, which was his inner thoughts and plans. Given Kaido of the Beast's immense fighting power and the numerous devil fruit users, including Blackbeard Teach, who also possessed dual devil fruit abilities, that's it. Kid immediately wanted to uncover the secret behind Blackbeard Teach's abilities. If Kid himself could become a dual devil fruit user and enhance his strength, then perhaps he would have the power to rival Kaido of the 100 Beasts. Of course, this idea couldn't be openly expressed. Kid was stupid. The others also looked at Hawkins, and Trafalgar Law's eyes showed a glimmer of hope. According to Hawkins' words, the plan to deal with Doflamingo had a chance. Hawkins slowly replied again, "My calculations aren't 100% accurate. They're just a kind of calculation. There are other external factors, which I can't determine. I'm just guessing about their own forces." With Hawkins' explanation, everyone basically understood, excluding external factors. The odds of winning against Doflamingo and Blackbeard Teach simply depended on Kaido of the Beast Pirates or the Marines. At this moment, Straw Hat Luffy shouted loudly, "Do we even need to think about this? It's such a simple problem. Of course we should choose the difficult one first. Challenging the easy one first is pointless, so it's Blackbeard Teach." "Straw Hat, you bastard!" Trafalgar Law, unable to sit still for a moment, jumped up and grabbed Luffy's straw hat by the collar. Capone Beach, after a moment of thoughtful silence following the cigar smoke, said, "Should we start with Blackbeard Teach? That's certainly a viable option. It would be safer not to confront Doflamingo, but it comes with the risk of facing Kaido of the Beasts." "That's right. Then I agree with Captain Straw Hat's decision to attack Blackbeard Teach." Appo chimed in, agreeing. Bonnie also expressed her agreement, saying, "I have no objection." "Me too," Yurish replied with a smile. The captains present basically all agreed to start with Blackbeard Teach, rendering Trafalgar Law's suggestion completely ineffective. Straw Hat Luffy, showing his pearly white teeth, asked D. "Law, I know you'd agree too, so we've decided to deal with Blackbeard Teach." "You bastard." Trafalgar Law was also furious. He regretted dragging Straw Hat Luffy into the group. The Supernova Alliance, after a series of discussions, finally decided to take action against the Blackbeard pirates. Throughout the process, the most displeased person was Trafalgar Law, but he alone couldn't outweigh everyone's opinions. Meanwhile, the Supernova Alliance's movements were being monitored by other forces. At the same time, on the Onigashima side of the Beast Pirates in Wano, Kaido, the leader, sat with his eyes closed, meditating. Robin respectfully approached Kaido and reported, "Lord Kaido, the Supernovas have formed an alliance, and they've set their sights on the newly powerful Blackbeard pirates. Should we join the Supernova Alliance?" "Interesting?" Kaido slowly opened his eyes, a golden glint appearing in them. That so-called Supernova Alliance never appeared in the original story. At most, there were only 2 or 3 alliances. However, in Kaido's eyes, it was simply a bunch of little brats causing trouble. Kaido waved his hand. Robin immediately understood Lord Kaido's meaning and respectfully replied, "I understand, Lord Kaido. If anything happens, I will come and report to you." Then Robin respectfully left the room, not wanting to disturb Lord Kaido again. Having followed Lord Kaido for this period of time, Robin had basically figured out Lord Kaido's habits. Therefore, with just a gesture from Lord Kaido, Robin instantly understood Lord Kaido's meaning. Without a very subtle mind, it's difficult to understand the thoughts of a grown man like Kaido. Robin's promotion to being Lord Kaido's personal secretary shows that he has something extraordinary about him. That's great. Teach, that traitor, has finally caught someone's attention. The Supernova Alliance. I'm sure they can skin the Blackbeard pirates alive. Buffalo Amos, the captain of the 13th Division, excitedly read the newspaper. Marco, however, was relatively calm, saying, supernovas themselves represent potential, and with so many supernovas combined, including each of their crew members, this combined force might just wipe out the Blackbeard pirates. Marco made an objective assessment. After all, the Supernova Alliance is a combination of many pirate crews, while the Blackbeard pirates are just a single pirate crew. At least the Supernova Alliance has enough strength to fight the Blackbeard pirates, and the probability of victory is quite high. After all, having been a pirate for so long, Marco's judgment is quite sharp. Jozu, with his diamond-like face, looked towards his father, who was sitting and drinking, and asked, "Father, should we send reinforcements to that Supernova Alliance? After all, Blackbeard Teach is the traitor who murdered that." Everyone on the ship turned their gaze to their father, awaiting his answer. Ace immediately jumped forward, asking for instructions. "Father, leave it to me. This time I will personally kill Blackbeard Teach, and my strength has already increased dramatically." Ace clenched his fist, which was now covered in Heishoku Haki, making his fighting power incredibly formidable. The captains of the squadrons now had complete faith in Ace. They had all said that Marco was the strongest person besides their father. Now, among the Whitebeard pirates, besides their father, Ace was the strongest. Having successfully mastered Heishoku Haki, Ace's strength had already reached the pinnacle of power. This was also the reason for the confidence the captains of the various divisions had in Ace. Yamato, standing beside Ace, also chimed in, "Captain Whitebeard, let me go with Ace too. My strength isn't bad either. I can help Ace then." Although Yamato knew Ace was very powerful, she was also worried about what might happen if something unexpected happened to Ace along the way. Right now, the person Yamato truly cared about most was Ace. Ace also looked at Yamato with great joy. The captains of the various divisions withdrew their gazes from Ace and once again looked at their fathers, waiting for their father's reply. Whitebeard took a large gulp of sake, exhaled, and chuckled. "It's fluttering already, Ace. You idiot son. I just taught you how to use Heishoku Haki, and you can't wait to run off to fight." "Father," Ace replied softly, his eyes shining brightly as he looked at his father. For some time now, Ace had been training diligently every day, finally mastering Heishoku Haki, significantly boosting his fighting power and making him one of the top-tier powerhouses. Ace was grateful to his father, but he would personally kill that traitor Blackbeard Teach. Whitebeard's gaze became serious as he said, "Marco, you go with Ace." "Yes, father," Marco replied. This time, Whitebeard didn't stop Ace. He knew that Blackbeard's Teach had become Ace's obsession. And only by having Ace personally stab Teach could Ace resolve his inner conflict. This time, with the support of the Supernova Alliance, Ace wouldn't easily get into trouble. Yamato happily said, "Ace, your father agreed." "That's right." Ace smiled happily at his father and said, "Dad, thank you." Diamond Jozu patted Ace's shoulder and said, "Ace, your strength has increased greatly, but you still have to be careful, otherwise we'll all be very worried." Captain Haruto of the 12th Division said, "Ace, Jozu is right. Everything must be done carefully. You can't have any accidents. If you have any difficulties, call us first. Don't worry." "I'll be careful," Ace replied with a smile, showing his pearly white teeth. Aizo nudged Marco and said, "Marco, Ace's safety is in your hands. After all, Ace is quite impulsive. My responsibility is not small." Marco, with a deadpan expression, reluctantly replied. Actually, Marco was very willing to do this. But Ace's easily agitated nature meant Marco couldn't handle it. He could only pray for Ace's self-control. Blackbeard Teach pondered for a moment. With Douglas Bullet joining, dealing with the so-called Supernova Alliance alongside his pirate crew shouldn't be a problem. The real concern now was the potential losses. After all, he'd worked so hard to build up his organization. Blackbeard Teach didn't want to lose his members because of that damn Supernova Alliance. That would be infuriating, but most of those supernovas were devil fruit users, and his Yami Yami Nomi ability could counter them. However, what annoyed Blackbeard Teach the most was, of all people, why did they have to target him? Did they think he, Blackbeard Teach, was easy to manipulate? Thinking of this, Blackbeard Teach was filled with anger. Corrupt King taunted. When we're fighting against those little brats from the Supernova Alliance, someone might try to ambush us. That would be dangerous. Corrupt King, you shouldn't be so reckless. The man in the barrel was annoyed. Couldn't he just relax a bit? He was always being targeted. Devin, with his ugly face, laughed. Ha ha ha, there are a few pretty women in that Supernova Alliance. It would be most interesting to twist their heads off and make them into specimens. That's really vicious, replied Q, who was leaning on his horse. But I like it, preferably by poisoning them to death, Van Augur, with his sniper rifle, said expressionlessly. This is a turning point in fate. Whether it's a step forward or utter ruin, we'll see. Burgess raised both hands excitedly and laughed. Wow, ha ha ha, there's nothing to be afraid of. We have Captain Teach and Douglas Bullet to monsters. The Supernova Alliance. They're not even worth mentioning. Burgess, are you saying my strength is weak? Shiryu of the Rain, standing beside him, instantly revealed a ferocious look, glaring intensely at Burgess and questioning him. Burgess instantly realized something was wrong. Shiryu of the Rain was, after all, the third highest ranking figure in the Blackbeard Pirates, with superior fighting power. So Burgess chuckled foolishly. Shiryu of the Rain, we know your strength perfectly well. How could you be weak? Shiryu of the Rain was too lazy to pursue this matter further with Burgess. It wasn't necessary anyway. Besides, Captain Blackbeard Teach was still here, so there was no need to make things too tense. It was true, Douglas Bullet's strength was superior to his, a fact Shiryu of the Rain had to admit. He had initially thought that joining the Blackbeard Pirates would secure him the number 2 position, but now he had become the number 3. Lafitte paced back and forth, his face pale, saying, the Supernova Alliance is now searching for our location. Shouldn't we take the initiative? If they seize the initiative, we'll be put on the defensive, and that wouldn't be good. Ha ha ha, Blackbeard Teach pointed his finger at Lafitte and laughed. Lafitte, you're right, since those little brats from the Supernova Alliance have all proactively challenged me. How can we just passively wait? We must take the initiative. Therefore, this mission is entrusted to you, Lafitte, as this is something you are best at. All right, Captain Teach. Lafitte naturally accepted the task assigned to him by Captain Blackbeard Teach. Within the Blackbeard Pirates, this kind of investigative mission was usually handled by Lafitte himself. Douglas Bullet picked up a bottle of wine and took a few sips, saying, when the time comes, let me test the mettle of those little brats first. Douglas Bullet, unusually full of fighting spirit, intended to personally test the mettle of the so-called Supernova Alliance's little brats. Blackbeard Teach, hearing this, laughed heartily. Ha ha ha, of course, no problem. When the battle comes, let you, Douglas Bullet, test the strength of those little brats first. Since Douglas Bullet had made this request, Blackbeard Teach was very happy, as he didn't want his strength to be depleted by those little brats. Therefore, he could preserve his strength to the greatest extent, just in case something unexpected happened. As for Douglas Bullet, Blackbeard Teach wouldn't worry about this monster at all. This guy is definitely a king-level fighter. This time, Blackbeard Teach's lack of fear of the Supernova Alliance stemmed partly from Douglas Bullet's presence. If Blackbeard Teach himself and his pirate crew were to face the Supernova Alliance, he wouldn't even consider it. He'd retreat immediately. Running away first wouldn't give him a good chance of winning, and Blackbeard Teach wouldn't do it. But now it's different. With Douglas Bullet, plus his pirate crew and himself, even facing the Supernova Alliance, the chances of winning are very high. Therefore, this is the source of Blackbeard Teach's confidence. Of course, he doesn't rule out the possibility of a sneak attack, so he still needs to be cautious, lest he be caught off guard. In the Gorosei meeting room of the Holy Land of Muriagua, Ethan Baron V. Nasujiro, sitting on a sofa and wielding a samurai sword, said seriously, the Supernova Alliance is targeting the Blackbeard Pirates. We don't necessarily need to intervene. Our focus remains on Kaido of the Beasts, Shepherd Repeater replied with a sharp gaze. Kaido of the Beasts is now the world government's biggest worry. As long as Kaido isn't eliminated, they can't sleep peacefully. Kaido has become their nightmare, a first in 800 years. Also sitting on the sofa, Topman Valkyrie Saint inquired, will Vegapunk's newest weapon be put into use? If it can be put into use, then we'll lock onto Wano country. Although Wano is a strategically important country, if we can eliminate Kaido of the Beasts, then we'll win. Vegapunk hasn't given a definitive answer yet, replied Saint J. Garcia Saturn, the god of defense science. Although his tone was calm, his heart was anything but. If that weapon was successfully created, then in this world, the celestial dragons would once again regain absolute power. To be precise, that weapon possessed the true power to destroy a nation. That kind of power should be able to kill Kaido of the Beasts. No, everyday Kaido of the Beasts existed was a nightmare in their hearts. Marcus Mars Saint suspiciously inquired. Vegapunk still hasn't given a definitive answer. What exactly is going on? Didn't they say it would only take a month to complete the final stage? How come it's already been over a month and he still hasn't given a definitive answer? What exactly does Vegapunk want? Or is he planning to oppose our world government? The Gorosei exchanged glances, realizing that this matter required them to act quickly. No one knew what might happen to Kaido of the Beasts the longer it dragged on. To be honest, Kaido of the Beasts was so powerful that even Lord M probably couldn't defeat him. Otherwise, why would they be so restless? They had never been shaken by the events involving Rocks or Roger, but now they were constantly on edge. All of this stems from Kaido, the Beast King, within himself. Ethan Baron v. Nasujiro Saint, tapping his samurai sword on the ground, said seriously, confirming by phone isn't guaranteed to be 100% accurate. The best approach is to go to the scene in person. The other four Gorosei understood Ethan Baron v. Nasujiro Saint's meaning. Confirming with Vegapunk by phone wouldn't guarantee a true answer, as they couldn't be sure whether Vegapunk would be truthful. Therefore, going to the scene in person was a viable option, allowing them to personally monitor Vegapunk's progress in researching the nation-destroying weapon. As the science defense warrior, Saint J. Garcia Saturn suggested, since I'm in charge of that area, let me go myself. I haven't been there in a while, and I can also examine the new Pachifista Seraphim. Perhaps the other navy should send Admiral Kizaru. That would be more secure, suggested Topman Valkyrie Saint. Saint J. Garcia Saturn had no objections. Even without his suggestion, he planned to bring an admiral and several vice admirals. Heading to the New World, and even deeper into it, the Navy and the world government's forces were already weaker, yet they needed sufficient combat power to ensure safety. Shepherd Repeater said, with the success of the Holy Mother's Flame, our power will be further consolidated and strengthened. We also need to arrange more personnel to keep an eye on Beast Kaido. We can't wait until we need to use our weapons while Beast Kaido isn't in Wano. Ethan Baron v. Nasujiro Saint's meaning was clear. To use the Holy Mother Flame, a weapon capable of destroying an entire nation, they needed Kaido of the 100 Beasts to be in Wano. If Kaido wasn't in Wano, even if they wiped out Wano, it would be useless. Saint J. Garcia Saturn stood up and said, I must leave. Time waits for no one. Marine Headquarters, Marineford, Admiral's office. Kizaru, with a humble and lazy expression, entered the Admiral's office. As soon as he entered, Kizaru inquired Kyuzin, what's so urgent? Why did you call me here so urgently? Borsalino and Kyuzin were of the same generation, so even though Kyuzin had become an admiral, Kizaru still addressed him by his first name, Kyuzin. Seeing Borsalino arrive, Kyuzin went straight to the point, saying, Gorosei Saint J. Garcia Saturn wants you to accompany him on a trip to Vegapunk's place. You can leave immediately afterward. Saint J. Garcia Saturn. Kizaru was also stunned, not expecting to be assigned this mission at this time. It was still a Gorosei assignment, and this time he couldn't refuse. However, Kizaru was too lazy to pursue the topic further, so he changed the subject and asked Kyuzin, what do you think about the Supernova Alliance's plan to attack the Blackbeard pirates? I asked the Gorosei, and they said they wouldn't get involved, so we don't need to either, Kyuzin replied directly. Kizaru showed a mischievous expression and said, how terrifying. It seems the Gorosei are focusing all their attention on Kaido of the 100 Beasts. However, if the other pirates just ignore it, problems will easily arise. But that kind of thing isn't something I need to worry about. In the New World, on the surface of the sea, 8 pirate ships sailed across the ocean, the Supernova Alliance fleet, en route to attack the Blackbeard pirates. At this time, all the Supernovas were gathered on the Straw Hat Pirates ship, discussing the plan to attack the Blackbeard pirates. Trafalgar Law remained silent throughout the journey, neither wanting to speak nor having the mood to. Capone Beach, puffing on his cigar, sat comfortably in his chair asking, how should we attack the Blackbeard pirates? Or should we just storm in with fanfare? To be honest, Capone Beach felt that, given the current situation, a fanfare attack wasn't what he wanted. It was too risky. Bonnie, with pizza still in her mouth, said, we're already like this. The Blackbeard pirates must have known we were going to attack them. Should we change our strategy now? Launch a surprise attack? A surprise attack? That's not that easy. The Blackbeard pirates have probably already started preparing for us, Apple replied dismissively, waving his hand. He thought that since the news of their plan to attack the Blackbeard pirates had spread several days ago, the Blackbeard pirates would undoubtedly have already prepared for war. Their main concern now was how to defeat the Blackbeard pirates. Although the alliance was strong, their cohesion was insufficient, and disagreements were likely to occur. Sitting on a chair with his arms crossed over his chest, Urish suggested, otherwise, we could split into two groups. One group would launch an attack on the Blackbeard pirates, while the other would launch a surprise attack on them. That way, our chances of winning could increase. Lazily sitting down, Trafalgar Law said, these plans should have been discussed long ago, but they've dragged on until now. It's obvious that once the war starts, we'll all end up in disarray, fighting amongst ourselves. In Trafalgar Law's view, the Supernova Alliance's hasty attack on the Blackbeard pirates lacked any detailed planning, merely a brief discussion. This hasty attack on the Blackbeard pirates meant the war would inevitably change in an instant. Once the war began, any kind of situation would be perfectly normal. Trafalgar Law didn't want to explain any of this, because among these people, there were a few who were self-righteous, refusing to listen to others' reasoning, believing that what they thought was right was right. This was what frustrated Trafalgar Law the most, which is why he became so lazy, unwilling to suggest anything or manage anything. Because it was meaningless. It was completely contrary to his plan. As for compensation, that would require some people willing to listen to his arrangements. Otherwise, everything would be pointless and meaningless. Kid glanced at Trafalgar Law and said, what, are you scared? Trafalgar Law, if you're scared, you can hide behind someone when the fight starts. According to Kid, Trafalgar Law is currently planning to use his skills but not his strength, meaning he has no choice but to deal with Doflamingo. Kid really doesn't understand. Dealing with Doflamingo is something that can be done anytime after dealing with the Blackbeard pirates. He could easily eliminate Doflamingo after all. He's just a Shichibukoi. Not only are so many of them supernovas, but Kid is also full of confidence in his own strength, believing that even alone, he could defeat Doflamingo. Still fiddling with Carol's Hawkins card, he slowly said, I agree with Urish's suggestion just now. It's indeed a relatively good solution for us at the moment. One part attacks from the front, another attacks from the rear. Even if the Blackbeard pirates are deliberately on guard, our sneak attack can still disperse a portion of their forces. Urish heard Hawkins support his plan and smiled with satisfaction. At least there were people who understood strategy. At least they weren't a bunch of brutes. Although Urish himself was a brute, he wouldn't admit that he was. At this moment, Straw Hat Luffy angrily slammed the table and shouted, disgusting. What are you all talking about? Making things so complicated. Anyway, when the time comes, I'll take down Blackbeard Teach. Straw Hat Bastard, what are you saying? Blackbeard Teach is my prey. Kid instantly became annoyed upon hearing this. This damn Straw Hat Luffy daring to steal his prey. This made Kid extremely uncomfortable. If it weren't for the impending battle, he would have really wanted to teach this Straw Hat Luffy a lesson. No, Kid just had an intuition that made him feel uneasy. But facing Kid's roar, Straw Hat Luffy didn't back down at all, engaging in a standoff with Kid, completely a situation where neither would yield. Everyone present fell silent instantly because they had seen that Straw Hat Luffy and Kid were constantly bickering along the way. At first, they were curious and excited, but now they felt nothing at all. They had basically gotten used to it. Seeing that the two were about to fight, Dezana and Killer quickly tried to stop their captains. They really would have fought. After all, they had stopped them many times along the way. Dezana said, Luffy, calm down. The war is about to begin. You needn't run out of energy. Killer also said, Kid, you still want to deal with Blackbeard Teach. Fighting here will be disadvantageous to us. So Straw Hat Luffy and Kid sulked again and sat back down. The other people present were basically not surprised. They were only a little nervous at the beginning. Now, there was absolutely no tension because it had happened so many times that they were used to it. Hawkins slowly twirled his cards and said, "Since we're going to use a new plan, let's start allocating personnel now. Who will attack head-on, and who will go on a surprise attack? Otherwise, before we've even finished allocating personnel, once we arrive at Blackbeard's Pirate Island, before the battle even begins, we'll be the first to get into chaos." Everyone exchanged glances, and Zoro and Sanji had no objections. After all, Luffy was the captain, so they just followed whatever Luffy arranged. After nearly 10 minutes of discussion, the allocation staff finally made a decision. However, there was a brief interlude. Straw Hat Luffy and Kid were both vying for the spot to attack head-on. They didn't care about any kind of sneak attack. For them, only a direct confrontation was meaningful. Apple muttered sarcastically, "They're two fools, beyond redemption." According to Apple, attacking head-on usually leads to the quickest death, but Apple didn't care about that. After all, he didn't need to risk his life, someone else would. Therefore, Straw Hat Luffy and Kid were the real idiots, and Apple was quite happy they could continue being fools. Hawkins slowly put away Carol's card and said, "So, I, Trafalgar Law, and Apple will be responsible for the rear-end attack on the Blackbeard pirates. The rest of you will be the frontal assault team. The frontal assault team will consist of the Straw Hat Pirates, Kid's Pirates, Urge's Pirates, Bonnie's Pirates, and Fire Tank Pirates." One person, however, was extremely annoyed by the cigar smoke. This person was Capone Beach, who didn't want to join the frontal assault team. But since things had come to this point, it wouldn't be good to make a fuss about it, or he'd become unpopular. Straw Hat Luffy excitedly stood up and laughed. "Well, ha ha ha, so I'll handle Blackbeard Teach. Everyone, please trust me. I will definitely defeat Blackbeard Teach." Damn it! Kid's veins instantly bulged, and he angrily shouted, "Straw Hat Kid, how many times have I told you? I'm the one dealing with Blackbeard Teach, understand? If you don't understand, I'll use my fists to make you understand." Disgusting. Who's afraid of whom? Straw Hat Luffy was also very wary of Kid. He had clearly said he wanted to personally deal with Blackbeard Teach, but this Kid guy always chose to go against him, which made Straw Hat Luffy extremely unhappy. If it weren't for his companions constantly holding him back, Luffy himself would have jumped up and beaten Kid long ago. Trafalgar Law, with his eyes closed, heard the two arguing and said, "Straw Hat host, Kid host, since you two want to personally deal with Blackbeard Teach, then join forces and do it together." Constantly arguing and insisting like that will leave one person unable to fight Blackbeard Teach. Trafalgar Law also felt that this supernova alliance could be a trap, especially with such eccentric individuals. Currently, his plan was completely messed up. Straw Hat Luffy and Kid were at a standoff for a moment, and Kid took the lead, saying, "Law, you're right. It's useless for me and the Straw Hat Kid to keep arguing. After all, there's only one Blackbeard Teach. Then let's settle it this way, Straw Hat Kid. When the time comes, we'll both rely on our own abilities to see who can defeat Blackbeard Teach." "Okay." Straw Hat Luffy raised his hand to press down on his straw hat confidently, saying, "By then, I'll definitely be the one to defeat Blackbeard Teach. I'm too lazy to argue with you anymore." Kid didn't want to continue arguing either. He was quite annoying. The scene was much quieter, especially since Luffy and Kid, the Straw Hat wearers, were so peaceful. No, it's not just a simple squabble. It could easily lead to death. Killer, along with the Straw Hat crew Zoro, Sanji, Usopp, Frankie, Brook, Chopper sighed in relief. It's good that the conflict didn't escalate further. Otherwise, they wouldn't know how it would have ended. Actually, what they didn't realize was that Luffy and Kid didn't want to continue arguing, mainly because they lacked a way to back down. Now that there was a way, they could naturally back down. After all, continuing the argument was meaningless for them. If Trafalgar Law hadn't intervened, Kid and Luffy would still be arguing, because they simply couldn't bring themselves to back down. Bonnie shook her head helplessly and said, "Finally, it's quiet. I don't know what's going on between you two. It's as if you're incompatible by nature." Appo, who had been secretly laughing behind her back, didn't pay attention to these things. As for attacking him, the safety factor was much higher. At least if he realized something was wrong, he could escape. At least he didn't have to risk his life. It wasn't like facing the Blackbeard pirates. Any of these supernovas could die, and Trafalgar Law couldn't possibly want to fight head-on. His initial suggestion hadn't been accepted. Dezana, Zoro, Senji, Usopp, Frankie Brook, and Chopper all looked helplessly at their captain, Luffy. Thankfully, they didn't cause any more trouble. No, it was indeed enough to give someone a headache, but now things have finally calmed down. On the island, the Blackbeard pirates were all well prepared for battle. Blackbeard Teach, stepping on an ugly rock, laughed and said, "Ha ha, those little brats are almost here. They really don't know their limits. Then I'll show you the power of my yummy yummy nomi. Teach, don't forget, let me test the level of those little brats first." Douglas Barrett, with his arms crossed, coldly replied. Ha ha ha. Blackbeard Teach maintained his ugly smile and said, "No problem. Those little brats are just a bunch of weaklings in your eyes." Blackbeard Teach's words were intentionally meant to elevate Douglas Barrett. After all, besides Blackbeard Teach himself, Douglas Barrett was the strongest fighter in the entire Blackbeard Pirates. It could be said that in this battle against the Supernova Alliance, if it weren't for Douglas Barrett's help, honestly, Blackbeard Teach would have considered fleeing. After all, it wasn't against a single supernova, but against a whole group of them. Blackbeard Teach wasn't blind. He could clearly distinguish the advantages and disadvantages. Now, with Douglas Barrett's help, it would save a lot of trouble and significantly boost the overall fighting power of the Blackbeard Pirates. Lafitte, standing behind him, twirled his sword and respectfully inquired, "Captain Teach, in about half an hour, those supernovas will arrive here. To prevent their surprise attack, we should arrange for reinforcements." Blackbeard Teach listened and felt that this was indeed true. If war broke out and the rear was ambushed, it would be equivalent to being attacked from two sides. Therefore, Lafitte's suggestion definitely needed careful consideration. Blackbeard Teach revealed a ferocious smile and said, "Ha ha ha, Lafitte, you're right. Our rear also needs to be strong, otherwise, if those little brats ambush us, it would be a complete loss. So, Shiryu, you take the Evil King and the wine barrel to our rear to guard it. Don't let those little brats seize the opportunity to ambush us." "Understood. Leave it to me," Shiryu replied coldly, smoking his cigar. To be honest, he wanted to fight on the front lines, where he could kill to his heart's content. But since Captain Teach had entrusted him with the task of guarding the rear, he couldn't refuse at this crucial moment. The Evil King and the wine barrel had no objections whatsoever. Guarding the rear was a safer task for them, though it also came with inherent risks. Shiryu, along with the Evil King and the wine barrel, turned and headed towards the rear. Thus, only Blackbeard Teach, Douglas Barrett, Lafitte, Vegas, Van Augur, Doc Q, Devon, and a group of Blackbeard Pirates subordinates remained. These few were the main fighting force in this war. To be precise, the true fighting strength of the Blackbeard Pirates lay in Blackbeard Teach and Douglas Barrett, these two Emperor-level fighters. As long as these two Emperor-level fighters didn't fall, this war would be a victory for the Blackbeard Pirates. Vacatus raised his head and laughed. "Ha ha ha, by then, I want to personally break off a supernova's head. That kind of thing will definitely be extremely interesting." "Then don't get yourself involved then," Doc Q, with a sickly tone, reminded him. Vacatus instantly became unhappy upon hearing this. This bastard Doc Q always teased him. If it weren't for the fact that a major battle was about to begin, Vacatus would definitely give Doc Q a good beating. Lafitte, pacing around with his sword, said with a pale face, "You guys don't need to make a fuss. If Captain Teach is unhappy later, you'll all have to bear the consequences." Vacatus and Doc Q's men immediately shut their mouths. They could tease, but they didn't dare to displease Captain Teach. If they really did, they would all be guilty. At this moment, Blackbeard Teach ordered, "Van Augur, keep a close watch on the situation at sea. Report back to me immediately if anything changes." "Okay, Captain Teach," Van Augur replied expressionlessly. But what no one knew was that Blackbeard Teach was worried about one thing. What if the Whitebeard Pirates or the Navy ambushed him? Therefore, Blackbeard Teach absolutely needed to be prepared, lest he be caught off guard when the time came. Douglas Barrett, seemingly noticing Blackbeard Teach's anxiety, said, "What's wrong, Teach? Are you scared?" Ha ha ha! Blackbeard Teach, whose thoughts had been seen through, instead showed an ugly expression and laughed. Barrett, how could I be scared? How could Blackbeard Teach possibly admit to something like this? Even his slightest reaction just now had been noticed by Douglas Barrett, which annoyed Blackbeard Teach. However, Blackbeard Teach wouldn't say anything outwardly. And Douglas Barrett didn't care about Blackbeard Teach's reply. Currently, Douglas Barrett was interested in one thing: those little brats from the Supernova Alliance. Let's see how those little brats will try to please him when the battle begins. Anyway, he was seething with anger inside, and now he had a good opportunity to vent it verbally. When Van Auger discovered the Supernova Alliance upon their arrival, he reported, "Captain Teach, the Supernovas are 3 people short." What? 3 people short? Blackbeard Teach was stunned at first, then quickly recovered and laughed. Ha ha ha, looks like they're preparing to ambush my rear. Ha! But those little brats' plan is going to fail. With Shiryu, the evil king, and the wine barrel guarding the rear, the problem shouldn't be too big. Now, they just need to deal with these little brats head-on. However, Blackbeard Teach didn't forget that Douglas Barrett was going to be the first to give those little brats a beating. So Blackbeard Teach ordered, "My men will retreat 1,000 meters and leave the battlefield to Barrett." A short while later, Straw Hat and Kid and the others officially landed on the island. The large figure that appeared before them was Douglas Barrett. Straw Hat Luffy yelled, "Big guy, who are you? Get out of the way. I want to find Blackbeard Teach." Straw Hat, that guy is Douglas Barrett. He's also a monster. Kid, on the side, smirked and replied. Clearly, Luffy hadn't yet figured out who this person was. After all, in Straw Hat Luffy's eyes, there was only one enemy, Blackbeard Teach. Capone Beach, puffing on his cigar, analyzed, "It seems they intend to have Douglas Barrett deal with us first. So that's it." Uruj cracked his neck, his fighting spirit surging. Bonnie, still eating pizza, suggested, "Since the Blackbeard pirates aren't all out, we don't need to send everyone. I alone am enough to clear the way," Kid said confidently, standing up. In Kid's own view, he believed he could single-handedly take down Blackbeard Teach. Ultimately, the Straw Hat Pirates deployed 3 members, Kid's Pirates deployed 2, plus Capone Beach Bonnie, and Yuri's a total of 8, Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, Kid, Killer, Capone Beach Bonnie. And Yuri's Douglas Barrett, with his arms crossed, laughed dismissively. "Ha ha, little brats, are you ready? Don't say I didn't give you time to prepare. Douglas Barrett, let's finish you off first, then we'll go take down Blackbeard Teach." Kid's tone remained arrogant and confident. Douglas Barrett revealed a cruel smile. These guys really didn't know their place. But that was fine to dot. It will only be meaningful when the lecture begins. From afar, Blackbeard Teach saw this scene, revealing an ugly grin and saying, "Ha ha ha, this is really interesting. Let's begin. The so-called little devils of the extremely evil era. Let Douglas Barrett give you a good lesson. Captain Teach, maybe we won't even need to participate in the battle in the end." Luffy, pacing around with his sword, replied with a pale face. Van Auger, carrying a sniper rifle, said, "However, the enemy hasn't sent everyone. Those who haven't sent anyone are just a bunch of insignificant nobodies." Doc Q replied dismissively, "Those who have entered the battle are the main force of the Supernova Alliance. As for those who haven't, they're not worth paying attention to." That's how it is in Doc Q's eyes. Blackbeard Teach wore an ugly grin throughout the entire journey. Judging by the current situation, his chances of defeating these little brats were very high, especially since he hadn't even made a move yet. Douglas Barrett then gestured, saying, "Little brats, why don't you attack me first? If you don't take the initiative to attack me, don't blame me for attacking first. Stop talking nonsense, let me see you." As soon as Kid finished speaking, all the metal around him, including swords, knives, and guns, was drawn in, transforming into an enormous steel arm. Douglas Barrett looked at the attacking robotic arm and said dismissively, "Little brat, you think you can use this kind of petty trick to retaliate against me? That's too much of a pipe dream." Douglas Barrett, his fist covered in Bisashoku Haki, punched it, and in an instant, Kid's robotic arm was shattered. Kid exclaimed in astonishment, "What? One punch shattered my robot arm? Damn Douglas Barrett." Straw Hat Luffy, using Gear 3, charged forward, angrily shouting, "Get out of the way! I'll attack him!" "Damn it!" Seeing this, Kid had no choice but to give Straw Hat Luffy a path to attack. Gear 3, Elephant Sphere. Another boring trick. Facing these boring attacks, Douglas Barrett had already shown his impatience. In an instant, he rushed forward, slamming his fist into Straw Hat Luffy's Gear 3 Elephant Sphere, sending Luffy flying away. Zoro and Sanji instantly tensed up. Sanji worriedly said, "Is Douglas Barrett's strength really that great?" One punch sent Luffy's Gear 3 flying away. There's no time to complain now. Let's seize the opportunity to launch an attack on him. Zoro drew out his 3 swords and charged towards Douglas Barrett. Sanji also hurried after him. Their enemy, Douglas Barrett, was no ordinary person, and they had to give it their all. Killer, Yurish, Capon Beach, and Bonnie all rushed towards Douglas Barrett. If they couldn't even defeat Douglas Barrett, it would be a real disgrace. The battle intensified, with 8 people constantly attacking Douglas Barrett. However, Douglas Barrett remained skillful and composed throughout, showing no signs of fatigue. This made the supernovas realize the gap between themselves and true powerhouses. If they couldn't even handle Douglas Barrett, how could they possibly challenge Kaido of the Beasts' doctor? Traza said worriedly, "This is bad." Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and so many others are ganging up on Douglas Barrett, and they haven't gained the upper hand. If things continue like this, we'll be at a disadvantage. Damn it! How can that Douglas Barrett be so powerful? Usopp was also somewhat distraught. How did one person suddenly appear with such immense strength? How are they supposed to fight? Frankie said seriously, "I once heard Rayleigh say that Douglas Barrett was once a member of Roger's pirate crew, and he's a monster that only Roger could subdue." That's terrifying. Chopper couldn't help but tremble upon hearing this. Brooke chimed in, "Right now, we can only trust Luffy and the others. Otherwise, fighting them would be pointless. We might even cause more trouble." "We'll definitely win," Dr. Traza reassured herself. On the other side, the ugly Blackbeard Teach laughed. "Ha ha ha, with that look on your face, Douglas Barrett. Give these little brats a good beating. Let them understand what it means to be ignorant of the world. If they dare challenge me, they should be prepared to die." Captain Teach, with so many devil fruit users, this time our Blackbeard pirates are going to have a great harvest. Lafitte, his face pale, paced around holding his sword and replied. Hey ha ha ha, Baggins raised both hands excitedly and laughed. Lafitte, you're right. Captain Teach, let's slaughter all these supernovas. But we can harvest many excellent devil fruit abilities. That's right. They just barged in. Doc Q began with a sinister, cold laugh. These little brats could be considered a boost to the Blackbeard pirates' fighting power. Devin licked his lips and chuckled sinisterly. That female pirate. I'm going to personally break her neck later and turn her into a collectible. It'd definitely be a great item to keep. Blackbeard Teach also laughed excitedly. Ha ha ha, this is exactly the kind of outcome I want to see. Also, Vin Augur, you must keep a close eye on the situation on the sea. We can't let others reap the benefits. In Blackbeard Teach's opinion, the worst outcome right now was not being taken advantage of by others. No, Blackbeard Teach wouldn't give up. Understood, leave it to me. Van Augur replied expressionlessly. Thrown into the underground bunker by Douglas Barrett, Bonnie struggled to crawl out, muttering angrily, damn it. Didn't Hawkins say we had a 50% chance of winning against the Blackbeard pirates? How come now, fighting Douglas Barrett is so difficult? Damn it, that bastard Hawkins isn't trying to sabotage us, is he? Capon Beach wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and angrily said, stop talking nonsense. We have to find a way to defeat this Douglas Barrett, otherwise, before we even face Blackbeard Teach, we'll all be dead. He's a truly terrifying monster. His Visashoku Haki is incredibly strong. Yorush was also very impressed by Douglas Barrett's power. Yorush initially thought his own Visashoku Haki was strong enough, but after witnessing Douglas Barrett's Haki, his understanding was completely renewed. If Douglas Barrett is so powerful, then what about Kaido, who is even more powerful than the Beast Pirates? Suddenly, Yorush felt a sense of bewilderment. No matter what, they had to defeat the enemy Douglas Barrett first. Killer, after narrowly dodging Douglas Barrett's attack, reminded him, Kid, I'll create an opportunity later. You'll launch the attack. It's difficult. My attacks can't break through that guy's defense. Kid's face was extremely grim, because his attacks couldn't even penetrate Douglas Barrett's Visashoku Haki defense. This made Kid feel incredibly awkward. Straw Hat Luffy, breathing heavily, said, "Zoro, Sanji, you to cover me a little later. I want to use Gear 4. Okay." Zoro and Sanji replied simultaneously. They hadn't expected this. They were only fighting Douglas Barrett. They had to go all out. After Douglas Barrett knocked Uruj away with a punch, he sneered, "Little brats, what other tricks do you have up your sleeve? Use them all. Up until now, your performance has truly disappointed me. If this is all you've got, then prepare to all die." At this moment, Kid, Killer, Capone Beach, Uruj, and Bonnie all looked at Straw Hat Luffy's transformation with puzzled expressions. Straw Hat Luffy had successfully used Gear 4 Elastic Man. Kid said doubtfully, "Straw Hat Luffy, you've turned into a balloon-like figure. You can't even stand. How are you going to fight?" Straw Hat Luffy must have used some kind of powerful technique, Uruj replied. Because he was a Paramecia-type Karma Fruit user, he knew roughly what was happening. Even if Straw Hat Luffy hadn't used a powerful technique, Uruj was planning to unleash his Karma Fruit ability. After all, he had been constantly attacked by Douglas Barrett and had accumulated enough strength to retaliate. Straw Hat Luffy, speaking to Douglas Barrett, said in a serious tone, "Gear 4 Elasticity user. Although I know that using Gear 4 won't defeat you, I should be able to put up a fight." Interesting? Douglas Barrett smirked, showing a dismissive smile, completely disregarding Straw Hat Luffy. Using Gear 4, Straw Hat Luffy's feet touched the ground, and he was instantly propelled upwards. This is also the reason why Straw Hat Luffy is called the Elasticity Man. A second later, Straw Hat Luffy used the elasticity to launch himself towards Douglas Bullet, his fist retracting into his body. Rubber Ball King Spear. Douglas Bullet, however, remained calm. Although shocked by Straw Hat Luffy's move, he didn't take it seriously. Douglas Bullet also raised his fist and punched towards Straw Hat Luffy's incoming punch. Bang! The moment their fists collided, Douglas Bullet remained motionless, while Straw Hat Luffy was forced back more than 20 meters before he could barely stabilize himself. Douglas Bullet shook his fist, not bothering to look up, and chuckled, "Haha kid, your technique isn't bad. It instantly boosts your fighting power by a level, but how long can you last fighting while maintaining the Sashoku Haki all over your body?" For Douglas Bullet, he had basically seen through Straw Hat Luffy's true strength, although he didn't know what technique Luffy used to enhance his power. But using the Sashoku Haki like that, he definitely couldn't last too long, because that Straw Hat Luffy wasn't someone with particularly strong Sashoku Haki. Straw Hat Luffy said seriously, "Don't worry about how long I can last, but I will definitely send you flying." Not far away, Kid raised his eyebrows and said, "That's Straw Hat Luffy. Even with his new moves, he still can't deal with Douglas Bullet." After all, according to Kid, after the two of them fought just now, Straw Hat Luffy was at a disadvantage. So, based on the current situation, Straw Hat Luffy couldn't handle Douglas Bullet. While Kid was speaking, Zoro and Sanji had already rushed towards Douglas Bullet together. They wouldn't let Luffy fight alone. It would be too dangerous for him. Douglas Bullet glanced at the two attacking from the left and right, and the next moment he blocked their attacks. He also sent Zoro and Sanji flying away. Rubber Rhinoceros a grenade gun. At this moment, Straw Hat Luffy suddenly launched an attack, his leg successfully striking Douglas Bullet's chest. "Kid, your strength isn't enough." Douglas Bullet took half a step back, clasped his hands in front of his chest, and aggressively struck towards Luffy's straw hat, mockingly saying, "Bang!" Luffy's straw hat was slammed violently to the ground by Douglas Bullet. Lift up a piece of ash. Karma. At that moment, a fist struck Douglas Bullet from behind. A second later, Uruj was stunned, because he found that his fist felt like it was hitting a steel plate. The hardness made Uruj almost doubt his own existence. The reason for all this was that Douglas Bullet had covered his back with astonishing Sashoku Haki, rendering Uruj's attack meaningless. A second later, Uruj was kicked flying by Douglas Bullet, tumbling over 100 meters across the ground. Tank Giant Collision. Capone Beach, transformed into a tank giant, also collided with Douglas Bullet. "Damn ants!" Douglas Bullet said, bracing himself against the tank giant collision with both hands. These ants' attacks were simply relentless. Coupon Beach was thrown backward, and Bonnie was similarly kicked away by Douglas Bullet, causing Killer, who had ambushed him, to be slammed to the ground. Kid, running inside, angrily shouted, "Douglas Bullet, I'm going to kill you." The next moment, Kid was hit hard in the nose by Douglas Bullet's fist, spitting out blood and rolling uncontrollably on the ground. Rubber King Crow Cannon. Straw Hat Luffy's fists relentlessly pounded Douglas Bullet's body. Bang, 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 but at this moment, Straw Hat Luffy was also extremely anxious. He had already used his strongest move Gear 4, but he still couldn't match Douglas Bullet. If this continued, he would definitely be defeated by Douglas Bullet, and Straw Hat Luffy didn't want to be defeated on his first stop in the New World. Now, Straw Hat Luffy could only desperately accelerate the speed of his fist attacks. Douglas Bullet, with both hands protecting his head, slowly shifted his gaze upwards, locking onto the figure of Straw Hat Luffy, and whispered, "The counterattack is quite fierce, but unfortunately it can't deliver a fatal blow to me, so everything is in vain." One sword style combined. Lion Brother. At this moment, a flash of sword light streaked across Douglas Bullet's stomach, and Zoro's figure appeared behind him. Zoro's sneak attack distracted Douglas Bullet, causing Straw Hat Luffy's fists to continuously land on Douglas Bullet's head. Bang, bang. Seeing this, Straw Hat Luffy swung his fists even more desperately. Zoro had created an opportunity for him, and he couldn't miss it. In the distance, the Blackbeard pirates. The ugly Devon said anxiously, "It's bad. Douglas Bullet has been hit. Captain Teach, should we go up and help?" "Ha ha ha," Blackbeard Teach laughed dismissively. "You underestimate Douglas Bullet. That level of attack isn't enough to bring him down. Look, my worries before coming here were completely unnecessary. Douglas Bullet alone can handle these little brats." The Blackbeard pirates all sneered, thinking that this so-called Supernova Alliance was nothing more than a ragtag group. There was absolutely no need to worry. Captain Teach hadn't even made a move yet, and Douglas Bullet had already taken care of them all. What else did they have to worry about? The rearguard, intending to launch a surprise attack, encountered Trafalgar Law, Hawkins, and Appo. It was the Blackbeard pirates Shiryu of the Rain, Corrupt King, and the Barrel. Appo waved his arm and chuckled, saying, "It seems our surprise attack won't be that easy." "The Blackbeard pirates aren't all fools," Trafalgar Law replied with an unchanging expression. If a surprise attack were that easy, the Blackbeard pirates wouldn't have the ability to succeed. Their current situation suggests they were initially known for their surprise attacks. Trafalgar Law knew this, so he believed that success was best for a surprise attack, but failure wasn't crucial. He couldn't force things. After all, war is unpredictable, and anything can happen. Hawkins said with an unchanging expression, "Let's begin. We'll strike first. We can't give the Blackbeard pirates any chance." As Hawkins finished speaking, Shiryu of the Rain and his two companions arrived. A 3-on-3 duel thus began. Trafalgar Law chose to face Shiryu of the Rain because he wanted to hone his strength, as he would be fighting Doflamingo later. If he could defeat Shiryu of the Rain, he would have sufficient strength to confront Doflamingo later. After all, given the current situation of the Supernova Alliance, they might not necessarily face Doflamingo in the future, so Trafalgar Law wanted to be prepared. At the same time, a ship flying the Whitebeard Pirates flag was approaching the area. Ace, Yamato, and Marco were together. Yamato, excitedly carrying his spiked club, said, "Ace, we're almost there. Then we can join forces to deal with Blackbeard Teach." "Yamato, leave the traitor Teach to me." "You and Marco deal with the others," Ace replied with unwavering determination. To defeat Blackbeard Teach, he had been training intensely every day, finally mastering Heishoku Haki. Marco, with his hands in his pockets, patiently reminded him, "Ace, you absolutely cannot underestimate Blackbeard Teach. That guy is plotting to become a dual Devil Fruit user. He's definitely not that simple." Marco's overconfidence was a flaw, but it couldn't be denied that Ace's talent was indeed very strong. In a short time studying with his father, he had successfully mastered Heishoku Haki, leap up to become one of the top-tier powerhouses. That point, if not for someone with extraordinary talent, would definitely be impossible to achieve. Of course, Marco's reminder was because Blackbeard Teach was truly not simple. Hiding within the Whitebeard Pirates for so many years, was it all to plot this? Just imagine how terrifying that must be. In short, telling Ace to be careful was definitely the right thing to do. Ace nodded slightly and replied seriously, Marco, please rest assured. I will not underestimate Blackbeard Teach. Having fought against Blackbeard Teach, Ace naturally understood the danger he posed. Ace clenched his fists, his goal unusually firm. The moment of revenge for Thatch had arrived. Marco said, the battle over there has already broken out. I'll take you two with me. Thank you, Marco, Ace replied gratefully. Marco transformed into his immortal bird form, using his talons to restrain Ace and Yamato by the collars, then flew towards the island. As the three of them approached, the sounds of fighting could be clearly heard erupting on the island. On Blackbeard's side, Van Augur reported seriously, Captain Teach, someone's coming. The enemy is Marco from Whitebeard's Pirates, Fire Fist Ace, and Kaido's daughter, Yamato. What? Kaido's daughter? What does he want? Blackbeard Teach instantly became restless. He wasn't worried about Marco and Ace. The problem was that Kaido's daughter was also with them. That made things much worse. Was Kaido of the Beasts also going to get involved? If Kaido of the Beasts was going to get involved, Blackbeard Teach would definitely flee immediately. Because Blackbeard Teach didn't dare to confront Kaido of the Beasts, that would be suicidal. Burgess also fearfully inquired, Captain Teach, what should we do now? Should we run away or not? Burgess was also scared. Now, who in the whole world doesn't know how powerful Kaido of the Beasts is? He's simply not someone the Blackbeard pirates can mess with. Blackbeard Teach's face also grew increasingly gloomy. He now had to consider retreating. He didn't want to leave his pirate crew here. This was the team he had painstakingly built, and the foundation for his future conquest. Blackbeard Teach's breathing became increasingly rapid. Laffit, pacing back and forth with his sword, analyzed, Captain Teach, I think the chances of Kaido of the Beasts intervening are very low. If Kaido were to intervene now, it wouldn't be this group. Laffit, why do you say that? Blackbeard Teach, harboring deep suspicions, didn't want to risk confronting Kaido of the Beast Pirates. It was too risky. Laffit circled around, holding his sword, and spoke again. Captain Teach, to ensure Kaido of the Beast Pirates won't send anyone to intervene, I'll go around the seas to check. Go ahead. Blackbeard Teach also felt that this approach was the safest option for now. Laughing, hey, he hit as truly breathtaking. This sea has now become the center of Kaido's Uzumaki, who will be able to break through the encirclement. Ace, being led by Marco and flying rapidly, shouted, Luffy. Following Ace's loud shout, Luffy, who was fighting, turned his head and, upon seeing Ace's figure, immediately responded excitedly, Ace. Ace, Yamato, and Marco fell beside Straw Hat Luffy. Coupon Beach whispered, the Whitebeard pirates have arrived too. With them here, our chances of winning have increased considerably. That's right. We've already given our all just dealing with Douglas Bullet, Yurish replied, looking exhausted. In this battle against Douglas Bullet, Straw Hat Luffy, Zoro, Kid, and the others were the main force. Honestly, if they weren't the main force, they would have all fallen. After all, Douglas Bullet was a truly terrifying monster bunny side. I'm exhausted. I thought our Supernova Alliance could handle Blackbeard's pirates, but we got caught off guard by Douglas Bullet. Oh well, you idiot. Kid let out a sigh indicating his current and pleasant mood, because he had originally planned to take down Blackbeard Teach alone. But before he even encountered Blackbeard Teach, they were stopped by Douglas Bullet. It was as if he himself was in the same predicament. Previously, when dealing with the Red Hair Pirates, Kid hadn't even reached Shanksby for having an arm severed, and now it was like this again. One can imagine how terrifying Kaido of the Beasts must be. At this moment, for some reason, Kid seemed to lose his ambition to conquer, because Kaido of the Beasts was an insurmountable mountain. Ace glanced at the situation in the courtyard and said, Luffy, you guys continue to deal with Douglas Bullet later. The three of us want to go confront the Blackbeard pirates. Is that right? Straw Hat Luffy revealed a smile and said, since Ace has spoken, then Blackbeard Teach will be the one to handle it. Straw Hat Luffy had immense trust in Ace. Thank you, Luffy, Ace replied with a smile. Meanwhile, Kid, still annoyed but helpless, looked very frustrated, as Luffy and his crew were currently in a stronger position. Douglas Bullet's eyes were cold as he said, 3 more people. Interesting? No matter how many of you come, I'll take them all on. In Douglas Bullet's view, as long as the enemy wasn't on the same level as him, he wouldn't take them seriously. The Whitebeard pirates were no different. If Whitebeard himself came, Douglas Bullet would still be interested in fighting him. Marco said, "Then let's go." Then Marco once again transformed into his immortal bird form, carrying Ace and Yamato towards the Blackbeard pirates' location. Douglas Bullet also realized that their target wasn't him, so he didn't care whether Blackbeard Teach attacked or not. He could handle them all by himself, but Douglas Bullet didn't want to let Blackbeard Teach get away too easily. Not far away, Blackbeard Teach saw this and laughed hideously. "Thief, ha ha ha, interesting. Ace and Marco's target is me. Little ones, prepare for battle." Hey ha ha ha, Burgess raised both hands and laughed. "Captain Teach, it seems we can't relax any longer." Haha. Q also laughed sinisterly. "Finally, we can start exercising our bodies." The Whitebeard Pirates' 1st Division Captain, Marco. Lafitte circled around, sword in hand, looking at Marco with great interest. Van Augur raised his gun, aiming at Fire Fist Ace, and instantly fired 2 shots. Bang! Bang! However, Van Augur's 2 shots were blocked by Marco's blue flame wings. Ace anxiously asked, "Marco, are you alright?" "I'm fine. Let's start the fight, Ace." Marco spoke while simultaneously throwing Ace and Yamato towards Blackbeard Teach on the ground. Ace landed in front of Blackbeard Teach, his tone cold. "Teach, we meet again. This time I will definitely not let you off." Ha ha ha. Blackbeard Teach laughed indifferently. "Captain Ace, you look very confident now. However, do you think you can defeat me in my current state?" Blackbeard Teach was very confident and didn't think Fire Fist Ace could pose a threat to him. Ace whispered, "Marco, Yamato, leave the others to you. Blackbeard Teach, will handle them." "Okay." Marco and Yamato nodded in unison. Blackbeard Teach spread his arms wide, thick black smoke constantly emanating from his body, and laughed. "Ha ha ha, Captain Ace. It seems my strength has made you remember once again the terrifying power of my Yami Yami no Mi. Come on, you little brats." Following Blackbeard Teach's command, Lafitte, Burgess, Q, Van Augur, and Devon charged towards Marco and Yamato, 5 against 2. Blackbeard Teach thought he had the advantage over his Blackbeard pirates. Ace raised his fist, closed his eyes for a second, then opened them again, his fist now covered in Heishoku Haki. Blackbeard Teach instantly recognized the technique Ace was using and exclaimed in shock, "What? Advanced Heishoku Haki usage? Disgusting. Don't think that just because you're covered in Heishoku Haki you can defeat me. Kuruzu." Blackbeard Teach aimed his hand at Ace's fire fist and unleashed Kuruzu, creating an irresistible gravitational pull. Ace was prepared for this, having fought Blackbeard Teach before and possessing some understanding of the Yami Yami no Mi's abilities. The moment Blackbeard Teach's right hand grabbed Ace's fist, enveloped in Heishoku Haki, struck Blackbeard Teach in the stomach. Bang! Blackbeard Teach endured the intense pain, gripping Ace's shoulder tightly. With excruciating pain in his stomach, Blackbeard Teach's face contorted, but he still maintained an ugly grin as he said, "Ha ha ha, Captain Ace. Don't you know that my Yami Yami no Mi ability can counter Devil Fruit users? You've already suffered a defeat once, and you still dare to stand up again. Well, this time, you won't be so lucky, Captain Ace. Fall down for me." Blackbeard Teach clenched his fist, enveloped in Bisashoku Haki, and fiercely slammed it down on Ace's head. However, Ace also resisted. The inability to use his Mera Mera no Mi ability didn't mean Ace had lost his fighting ability. Facing Blackbeard Teach's attack, Ace used both hands and feet, blocking Blackbeard Teach's fist with one hand and kicking towards Blackbeard Teach's stomach with the other. Clang in pain, Blackbeard Teach couldn't help but release Ace's shoulder, retreating several steps backward before stopping and giving an ugly laugh. "Thief, ha ha ha, not bad, Ace. After mastering Heishoku Haki, your fighting power has increased considerably, but don't think you can defeat me like this," Blackbeard Teach said, and instantly more black smoke emanated from his body. Ace's body once again flew uncontrollably towards Blackbeard Teach. In the process, Ace conjured a flamethrower and shot it towards Blackbeard Teach, while his other hand was covered in Heishoku Haki. After knocking away the flamethrower with one punch, Blackbeard Teach's Heishoku Haki-covered fist also directly hardened against Ace's. The moment Ace touched the power of the Yami Yami no Mi, his attack rhythm was affected. but his fist remained straight towards Blackbeard Teach's head. Bang, bang! Under these circumstances, the two engaged in a mutually destructive exchange of blows. But along the way, Blackbeard Teach's body emitted a golden light. Blackbeard Teach shook his head, grinning uglily. Ha ha ha. That really hurt. If it weren't for my model, Great Buddha ability for defense, I would have been seriously injured just now. That's the ability of Admiral Sengoku, Ace replied seriously, wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth. His Heishoku Haki attack had clearly deflected some of the damage. It was indeed a mythical Zoan Devil Fruit ability, similar to Marco's, significantly boosting Blackbeard Teach's overall strength. Compared to their previous battle, Blackbeard Teach's power had clearly increased considerably. Ace clenched his fist, flames erupting from it, and said with unwavering determination, "Today, even if it costs me my life, I will kill you, Teach." Ha ha ha! Blackbeard Teach laughed hideously, his entire body expanding and transforming into a golden Blackbeard model, Great Buddha, saying, "Come on, Ace, it's time for us to settle this matter." There was one more thing Blackbeard Teach didn't say. As long as Kaido of the 100 Beasts didn't interfere in this war, Blackbeard Teach had nothing to fear. Douglas Bullet glanced at Blackbeard Teach, frowning, and said, "That idiot Blackbeard Teach, he was stopped by a little brat. What a disgrace. Don't you dare speak ill of Ace. Ace is very strong." Dozens of meters away, Luffy, wearing his straw hat, heard this and instantly became displeased. In Luffy's eyes, Ace was a very powerful being, and since Douglas Bullet had spoken of Ace in such a way, Luffy wouldn't let him off the hook. Douglas Bullet withdrew his gaze, dismissively saying, "Let's see how long you guys can last." Capone Beach instantly sensed something was wrong and loudly warned, "Something's wrong. Douglas Bullet's body is starting to change." As Capone Beach warned, everyone saw Douglas Bullet's body continuously absorbing and dissolving everything around him, causing his body to rapidly expand. Bonnie, watching the increasingly enormous Douglas Bullet, exclaimed in horror, "No way! Can it continue to expand further?" Douglas Bullet had already surpassed 100 meters, yet he was still expanding, as if there were no limit. Zoro said seriously, "No matter what, we have to defeat Douglas Bullet, otherwise we'll be the ones who die." "That feels bad." Sanji replied with a grim expression. Kid said with a gloomy expression, "That Douglas Bullet, he's using a devil fruit ability that's awakened. Disgusting." Actually, Kid was currently trying to figure out how to awaken his own Magneto-type devil fruit ability. If he could master the awakened ability, his chances of defeating Douglas Bullet would increase significantly. He wouldn't be in such a passive position now. Kid never thought he would one day find himself in such a disadvantageous situation. When Douglas Bullet completed the awakening of the Gasa Gasa no Mi Devil Fruit ability, he transformed into a monster 500 meters tall. Douglas Bullet declared, "Little devils, you're all finished." On the other side of the island, Trafalgar Law, Hawkins, and Appo all saw Douglas Bullet transform into a giant, their expressions turning grim. Appo exclaimed in alarm, "Ha! Is it real or fake? It's become so huge. How are Straw Hat Luffy and the others going to fight it?" Trafalgar Law and Hawkins remained silent, unsure of what to do. Shiryu of the Rain chuckled coldly. How it seems this battle is definitely going to be won by our Blackbeard pirates." "That's right. We were so worried just now." Corrupt King also relaxed. The drunkard, taking a sip of his drink, said, "I wonder when Captain Teach will send reinforcements. These three aren't simple at all. I've already got several wounds." The Supernova Alliance and the Blackbeard Pirates battle lasted a day and a night, and it was still not over. At the same time, over the New World, 10 marine warships sailed on the sea, led by Gorosei St. J. Garcia Saturn and Admiral Kizaru. Kizaru leisurely ate seafood noodles and humbly inquired, "St. J. Garcia Saturn, the battle between the Supernova Alliance and the Blackbeard Pirates is getting more and more serious. Are we just going to ignore it?" "Don't worry about it. Our main mission now is to reach Warhead Island." St. J. Garcia Saturn closed his eyes. All other missions could be put aside, except for matters concerning Vegapunk, which could not be taken lightly. Now Kaido of the Beasts is a major threat to the world government. To eliminate Kaido, they need to utilize technological power. Otherwise, the world government wouldn't have any better countermeasures. Kizaru continued eating his seafood noodles. With Gorosei St. J. Garcia Saturn present, he had no say in the matter, so he might as well treat it as a mission. After all, Kizaru was very easygoing and wouldn't be overly concerned about such things. St. J. Garcia Saturn also didn't care what Kizaru was thinking, as long as Kizaru completed the mission well. An hour later, the fleet arrived at Bullet Island. Kizaru looked at Bullet Island and couldn't help but show a nostalgic look, saying, "I miss it so much. Finally, I'm back here." St. J. Garcia Saturn and Kizaru officially confronted Vegapunk. St. J. Garcia Saturn got straight to the point, asking, "Vegapunk, hand over the new Holy Mother Flame weapon. You've had plenty of time. That research isn't finished yet. It still needs some time." Vegapunk replied calmly. However, to Gorosei St. J. Garcia Saturn, this meant Vegapunk was still stalling. If that's the case, there's no need to give Vegapunk any more time. The world government simply can't wait any longer. Everyone knows when Kaido of the Beasts will launch an attack on the world government. If Kaido attacks, how will they cope? The reason the world government is so passive is because Kaido of the Beasts is incredibly powerful, leaving them helpless. Otherwise, St. J. Garcia Saturn wouldn't have been in such a hurry, rushing to confront Vegapunk. There's still one thing, from the Gorosei's perspective, is that Vegapunk's Holy Mother Flame weapon is complete. They just aren't willing to hand it over. Just like now, they can use coercive means when necessary. Furthermore, after taking over everything here, they will officially eliminate Vegapunk. Their world government doesn't need to keep such a threat. What they need is absolute control. St. J. Garcia Saturn commanded, "Kizaru, go and subdue Vegapunk." How terrifying! St. J. Garcia Saturn-sama, this is very difficult for me, after all. Kizaru replied with a humble yet helpless expression. To be honest, Kizaru knew this mission wouldn't be easy. To ask him to do something like this, St. J. Garcia Saturn's tone instantly turned cold as he said, "Kizaru, you must understand your own identity." How terrifying, I know, Kizaru replied, raising his hands in a gesture of helplessness. Looking at Vegapunk, Kizaru said with a helpless and submissive expression, "Mr. Vegapunk, I'm sorry, but I cannot disobey the Gorosei's orders." At this moment, Kizaru was also speculating that the Vegapunk standing before them was probably not the real Vegapunk, but merely a stand-in. After all he needed to do was pretend. Because Kizaru knew that Gorosei St. J. Garcia Saturn intentionally wanted to eliminate Vegapunk. If they took his weapon or Pachifista, Kizaru didn't care about those things. As long as Vegapunk didn't die, that was all that mattered. Suddenly, three figures flew rapidly from afar. St. J. Garcia Saturn and Kizaru simultaneously turned their heads to look, and in an instant, they were stunned. The newcomers were Redfield, Flame King, and Enel. Kizaru's expression became even more sinister as he said, "How terrifying. The Beast Pirates have arrived here. This is really troublesome." St. J. Garcia Saturn's face also turned grim as he said, "That bastard Kaido of the Beast Pirates. How did he know about this place?" St. J. Garcia Saturn immediately dialed a special phone number. At this moment, there could be no hesitation. The situation was extremely serious. Redfield said, "Act according to the plan." Enel directly contacted Kizaru. Redfield also set his sights on Gorosei J. Garcia Saturn, while Flame King went to destroy the marine warships. Enel appeared before Kizaru first, arrogantly declaring, "Kizaru, we meet again. This time, I will make sure you are utterly humiliated." How terrifying, Enel, the fake user of the Goro Goro no Mi, but you Beast Pirates really seized the opportunity perfectly. Kizaru replied, still with a despicable, provocative look. Seeing Kizaru's vile expression, Enel instantly became enraged and extremely annoyed. Boom! Enel immediately unleashed his Goro Goro no Mi power and clashed with Kizaru. The battle erupted in an instant, and Vegapunk had already fled. Redfield approached Gorosei St. J. Garcia Saturn and slowly said, "You didn't hide in the holy land of Muriedra, and you dare to come here. It seems you're tired of living." Ha ha! St. J. Garcia Saturn sneered. "Redfield, after joining Kaido of the Beast Pirates, you think you're so great? Or do you think that being pirates alone can stand against the world government?" St. J. Garcia Saturn dodged several times, and he was also worried about whether Kaido of the Beast Pirates would arrive. If Kaido did, how could he possibly meet his demise? The next moment, Redfield swung his umbrella blade at St. J. Garcia Saturn. St. J. Garcia Saturn also transformed into his Yushi Oni form to block Redfield's attack. Now, he could only buy time. Waiting for reinforcements would put them in an extremely dangerous situation. At the warship's location, just as the Flame King destroyed a warship, a figure leapt out on a Geppu, blocking his path. Bang! The Flame King recognized the newcomer and said, "So it's the world government's CP organization. I remember you, Rob Lucci. Flame King of the Beast Pirates, you are the biggest cancer in this world, seriously threatening the Celestial Dragon's rule." Rob Lucci's tone was cold and ruthless as he judged. In Rob Lucci's view, as long as the Beast Pirates weren't eliminated, the world ruled by the Celestial Dragons would never be stable. King, hearing Rob Lucci's sarcastic remarks, couldn't help but laugh coldly. Haha, as expected of the world government's lackeys, their reasons are so fresh and unconventional. But this world is a world where the strong prevail. The world government's 800 years of rule will soon become history. Lord Kaido will become the king of this world. You're simply delusional. Rob Lucci roared, simultaneously unleashing his 6-power Shigen attack upon the Flame King. Bang bang, when Rob Lucci's Shigen all landed on the Flame King's chest, he was stunned. Because his attacks were unable to inflict any damage on the Flame King, Rob Lucci raised his eyebrows and said, "The Lunarians' defensive power is truly blessed by heaven. But the Lunarians are nothing more than an extinct race. Go die." Rikashiki Ogi Rokugan. Facing Rob Lucci's attack, the Flame Air King flapped its wings and immediately accelerated forward. Rob Lucci's body also transformed into a beast, and upon seeing Rob Lucci's beast form, the Flame Air King said with slight surprise, "So your Zoan type Devil Fruit ability has awakened. It's just an ordinary Zoan type, but it can't compare to my ancient Zoan." The Flame Air King similarly used its awakened ancient Zoan winged dragon form. The two instantly engaged in a fierce battle in midair. In the aerial combat, the Flame King gained the upper hand, with Rob Lucci relying on Geppu to maintain his aerial movement. Below, the Marine soldiers finally breathed a sigh of relief. They had thought they were going to be killed by the Flame King, but thankfully they were saved. While the Flame King and Rob Lucci were locked in a fierce battle, another figure leapt out, heading towards the island. It was Kaku. The Flame King's eyes swept over him, and he muttered, "Another CPO. Looks like another Zoan Devil Fruit awakened. We can't let him go over there and cause trouble. Flame King, you better watch out. Focus on your enemy right in front of you." Rob Lucci was furious. He dared to be distracted by Kaku while fighting him. He couldn't help but look down on him. Rob Lucci was the strongest genius in the world government's CP organization for the past 800 years. If he couldn't even withstand a single member of the Beast Pirates Flame King, then he had no face to remain in the CPO. Fire Dragon Emperor. Flame King unleashed a fiery dragon attack towards Rob Lucci. The appearance of the fiery dragon forced Rob Lucci to buy some time to dodge. However, Rob Lucci's delay and dodging gave Flame King more space. The Pteranodon behind him flapped its wings, accelerating towards Kaku, who was heading towards the target island. Facing Flame King's rapid approach, Kaku was also forced to stop and defend, covering his head with Bisashoku Haki. Flame King, also covered in Bisashoku Haki, kicked Kaku's arm fiercely. The powerful impact sent Kaku, whose body was already unsteady, flying backward. They fell in layers to the ground. Damn it, Flame King. With bloodshot eyes, Rob Lucci stomped his Geppu and charged straight at Flame King. Being blocked by Kaku was incredibly humiliating for Rob Lucci. Just as he was about to attack Kaku, Flame King was caught off guard by Rob Lucci's attack and was struck in the face, flying backward. After retreating 100 meters, Pteranodon flapped its wings, halting its retreat. Flame King, constantly engulfed in flames, paid no heed to Rob Lucci's attack. At this moment, his defense was exceptionally high, arguably the highest defense ever. To break through his defenses with a single blow, at least Lord Kaido would be able to do it. Rob Lucci angrily shouted, "Kaku, get up quickly. Go help Lord Saturn of the Gorosei St. J. Garcia." "I know," Kaku replied, crawling up from the ground. He knew that being delayed by the Flame King like this had wasted a lot of time, so after replying, Kaku immediately turned and ran towards the battlefield where Lord Saturn of the Gorosei St. J. Garcia was. Rob Lucci withdrew his gaze and looked at the Flame King seriously, saying, "All right, let's have a decisive battle." Don't tell me you don't dare, Lunarian's Flame King. That suits me perfectly. Killing you would also make the world government feel a little pain. The Flame King covered his katana with Bisashoku Haki, his aura becoming even more ferocious. The next second, the Flame King and Rob Lucci simultaneously charged at each other, and a new round of fighting began. Kaku glanced at Rob Lucci, confident that he wouldn't lose. Enel and Kizaru were on the battlefield. Enel's face was as constipated as if he were suffering from constipation, mainly because fighting Kizaru was too frustrating. Not only was he cowardly, but he also particularly liked guerrilla warfare, never engaging in a direct confrontation. Enel wanted a direct, forceful fight. That's what made it interesting. Kizaru, feigning cowardice while using guerrilla tactics, said, "How terrifying." Enel, a Goro Goro no Mi user, your speed is comparable to mine. It's not that easy for me to take you down. As expected of Mr. Enel, a Goro Goro no Mi user from the Beast Pirates. Disgusting. Enel gritted his teeth and said, "Kizaru, stop deceiving me here. You clearly haven't shown your true strength, yet you're mocking me. I'll make you pay a terrible price." In Enel's opinion, Kizaru wasn't fighting seriously at all. If he had, Kizaru, with his Emperor-level fighting power, could have easily suppressed him. However, the result was that their battle was evenly matched, and Enel didn't feel the pressure he should have. This wasn't what Enel wanted. What he wanted was pressure. Only with sufficient pressure could he resist and further improve his own fighting power. Enel was very clear about his own strength level. Strictly speaking, he hadn't yet reached Emperor-level fighting power. At most, he was only approaching it. It's important to know that, among the entire Beast Pirates, only Redfield and Big Mom Charlotte Linlin possess Emperor-level combat power. As for Lord Kaido, that doesn't count, because he's a being far beyond Emperor-level power. And the truth is, as Enel said, Kizaru didn't actually use his true strength. Of course, even if he did, it would be very difficult to defeat Enel. Enel was originally a Logia-type Devil Fruit user like him, and the Goro Goro no Mi itself gave him incredible speed. Therefore, to defeat Enel, one would have to rely on sheer brute force. Unfortunately, on this trip, Kizaru didn't want to use his true strength. He didn't want Vegapunk to die like that, and of course, he certainly didn't want to fall into the hands of the Gorosei or Kaido of the Beast Pirates. That would definitely be a dead end. Therefore, taking advantage of the short time, Vegapunk's ability to escape from the Island of Warheads is no problem at all. If the Beast Pirates hadn't intervened, there wouldn't be this opportunity now. But Kizaru wouldn't say those words out loud. Enel unleashed all the power of his Goro Goro no Mi fruit ability. 200 million volt Thor. A massive surge of lightning continuously surrounded Enel. And at the same time, Enel's body rapidly expanded, transforming into a giant of lightning. Kizaru looked at Enel, who had transformed into a giant of lightning, and said contemptuously, "How terrifying." "Thor Enel, it seems I have to take this seriously, otherwise, I'll be humiliated." Kizaru instantly appeared above Enel, his hands clasped, gathering the power of the Pika Pika no Mi fruit. Yasakani no Magatama. Countless laser beams shot towards Thor Enel. Useless. Enel opened his palms, and a lightning defense barrier opened. Bang rumble, the attacks from both sides continuously canceled each other out. Kizaru didn't think that one attack could take down Enel. Even though Enel's fighting power hadn't yet reached the Emperor level, the Goro Goro no Mi's inherent abilities bestowed upon him astonishing destructive power and speed. These were all advantages brought about by the Goro Goro no Mi's abilities. Furthermore, Kizaru didn't intend to fight to the death, as there was no need for it. He just wanted to buy some time, allowing Vegapunk to escape safely. As for what would happen afterward, would the Gorosei blame him? Kizaru didn't care about that at all. After all, he was a Marine Headquarters Admiral. Given the current global situation, the Gorosei should be focusing on pacifying their Marines, not engaging in internal conflict. Especially since they still had the formidable enemy Kaido of the 100 Beasts. Therefore, they would definitely turn a blind eye to him. The moment Kizaru's Yosakani no Magatama attack ended, Enel sped towards Kizaru at top speed. Enel's speed was strictly measured, and he didn't want to slow Kizaru down even a fraction of an inch, so Enel didn't dare hold back and had to give it his all. As Thor's giant fist swung out, Kizaru's light speed kick counterattacked. Bang! Enel's sudden attack was thus thwarted, and he said with a snort, "Fine, you damn bastard, all right. As long as I can stop you, that's enough." Enel didn't intend to defeat Kizaru because it was simply impossible. Only Lord Kaido could. Enel wouldn't let his attacks stop, constantly deflecting attacks from various Goro Goro no Mi abilities. However, all of Enel's attacks were easily and gradually neutralized by Kizaru. Kizaru, while simultaneously feigning a cowardly and inviting a beating, said, "Lord Enel, you think you can defeat me? You're far from it. Instead, playing with me would be quite a good way to relieve your boredom." Damn Kizaru. Enel's temples bulged with veins, his anger reaching its peak. Clearly, besides the fight, Kizaru was even engaging in idle chatter about trivial matters, and that's where Enel's rage stemmed. Kizaru continued his cowardly tone, "So, how long can you last?" "Enel, the user of the Goro Goro no Mi, don't disappoint me." This was Kizaru's deliberate attempt to provoke Enel. Redfield also noticed Enel's situation and shouted, "Enel, calm down and focus on the fight. Don't let your emotions affect your judgment." After Redfield's reminder, Enel finally calmed down a little. Kizaru's mockery just now had indeed affected his state of mind. St. J. Garcia Saturn continued to attack Redfield, the judge saying, "Do you still have the nerve to remind others? Redfield, since you dared to step onto this bullet-studded island today, then be prepared to die. You're not my match. Do you think you can defeat me just because you're a Gorosei? Utterly ridiculous." Redfield sneered. He didn't even consider Gorosei St. J. Garcia Saturn a threat. He treated it like a fart. At this moment, a figure rushed forward. It was Kaku. "Gorosei-sama, I've come to help you." St. J. Garcia Saturn glanced at Kaku and directly ordered, "Kaku, you go stop Redfield. Even if it means death, you must stop him, understand?" "Yes, Lord Gorosei," Kaku respectfully replied. For them, Lord Gorosei's orders were absolute. Even if it meant death, they had to die immediately. Redfield saw through their intentions and coldly laughed. "Want to stop me? Then I'll kill you first, so you don't wander around like a fly." As for whether Gorosei J. Garcia Saturn wanted to go find Vegapunk, Redfield wouldn't care. Because Lord Kaido had also ordered them to interfere with the world government's actions. Kaido transformed into his Azure Dragon form and flew through the air, his destination being Marineford, the Marine headquarters, which also marked the beginning of the Grand Line. No one expected Kaido to attack the Marine headquarters. The Marine headquarters personnel were busy as usual. Suddenly, thick dark clouds gathered in the Marine headquarters main square, leaving many Marine soldiers bewildered. How did the clear sky suddenly become so dark? This is bad. Vice Admiral Yomakaji immediately sensed something was wrong and shouted, "Everyone, retreat." Kyuzen, who was handling documents, also quickly dropped what he was doing and ran out. Admiral Fujitora also arrived at the square. His Kanban Shoku Haki had detected the arrival of a terrifying monster. Kyuzen's expression was extremely grim as he said, "I never imagined Kaido would invade Marineford, the Marine headquarters. We must order all Marines here to retreat. We must do our best to stop Kaido of the Beasts. Only then can we minimize casualties." "Marshal Kyuzen, this is the first time I've seen you so flustered," Fujitora said, somewhat surprised that Admiral Kyuzen was showing such distress. Kyuzen shook his head helplessly and said, "Wait a little longer. After you witness Kaido of the Beast's fighting power, you'll understand how terrifying he is. He's simply not someone we can contend with." Before Kyuzen's order was even given, Vice Admiral Tsuru Garp and the other Vice Admirals were already organizing a rapid retreat. From within the thick black clouds, an enormous dragon had emerged. Kaido's deafening voice echoed, "Navy soldiers, why are you running away in such panic? Do you think you can escape from my grasp?" The terrifying Heishoku Haki instantly swept through the entire Marine headquarters, causing countless Marine soldiers to foam at the mouth and faint. Even Vice Admirals could only withstand it for a few seconds before collapsing completely. Only Kyuzen, Fujitora, and Garp were relatively unaffected. Garp whispered, "We're finished. I never imagined Kaido of the 100 Beasts would become even stronger. What kind of monster is he? Does his power increase have no limit?" Garp couldn't understand why Kaido of the 100 Beasts' power could continue to increase, even though he was already so powerful. Even those who had reached the Emperor level had already reached the limit of their physical abilities. The beast Kaido was no ordinary person. He was a monster beyond human. It's likely that only a few vice admirals, Tsuru, Akainu, and Kizaru could escape today. As for those at Marineford, their fate was predictable. Garp had already considered the worst-case scenario. Fujitora gripped his sword tightly, saying in disbelief, "So, that beast Kaido's Heishoku Haki is incredibly powerful. Fujitora, we need to prepare ourselves mentally." "We might all die here today," Kyuzen stated the worst-case scenario. Because since Beast Kaido had suddenly attacked, their chances of survival were extremely slim. Fujitora whispered, "Marshal Kyuzen, we need to contact the world government as soon as possible to get them to send reinforcements. The world government is very close to here, and we should be able to hold out until they arrive." According to Fujitora, as other high-ranking admirals, even if Kaido of the 100 Beasts was far more powerful than them, they couldn't possibly be too slow to even hold out until reinforcements arrived, could they? That would be too ironic. If Kaido of the 100 Beasts was truly that terrifying, how could they fight him? Wouldn't the world be in Kaido's hands sooner or later? Kyuzen remained silent because Fujitora himself hadn't fought Kaido of the 100 Beasts before and didn't know his true terrifying nature. He'd only heard rumors. They hadn't actually fought Kaido of the 100 Beasts during the Summit War. Fujitora, sensing Kaido's Beast King Haki, felt he was like a giant beast from the abyss and replied, "Marshal Kyuzen, I know Kaido is terrifying, like a giant beast from the abyss." The next moment, in the Marineford headquarters square, a large mass of branches shot out, piercing into the bodies of the Marines and devouring their life force. Garp, enraged, slammed his fist on the ground, shouting, "Damn Kaido, using such a vicious technique again. He completely disregards human life. Today, even if it costs me my life, I will skin you alive." This scene instantly brought back memories of the Summit War, when Kaido had used this same technique to kill a large number of Marines. Seeing it again, Garp was filled with extreme rage. Fujitora relentlessly swung his sword, using the power of his Zushi no Mi to cut through the branches, but the sand in the desert was completely useless. The main problem was the sheer number of branches, and they kept appearing. In Fujitora's Kenbenshoku Haki, he could only helplessly sense countless Marines being killed by Kaido of the Beasts. Fujitora said helplessly, "So many Marine lives just died like this." Fujitora, "Mr. Garp, let's go." Kyuzen charged towards Kaido of the Beasts. Garp followed immediately. Fujitora, though a step behind, also followed Kyuzen's footsteps. Woof woof woof. Kaido, having reverted from his Azure Dragon form to his normal form, laughed and said, "You three have some fun with me. Add some more entertainment to my life." A massive surge of life force flooded into Kaido's body, making him feel unusually joyful. Crack Shinra Tensei. When the three-Tamo Rinnegan Eye technique erupted, Kyuzen, Fujitora, and Garp were all thrown back by the force, flying over 100 meters before stabilizing themselves. Garp said incredulously, "What just happened? Did Kaido of the Beasts acquire a new Devil Fruit ability? It's somewhat similar to my Zushi no Mi ability, but there are also differences." Fujitora was also very puzzled. Kaido of the Beasts had indeed shattered many understandings. Ordinary people can only obtain one type of Devil Fruit ability at most, yet Kaido of the Beasts possessed several types of Devil Fruit abilities. Even if there was another anomaly, Blackbeard Teach, a dual Devil Fruit user, Blackbeard Teach didn't have such exaggerated fighting power. At the very least, Blackbeard Teach was still at the Emperor level. After devouring over 10,000 Marines, including some generals, Kaido of the Beasts felt that his three-Tamo Rinnegan had reached its true limit. Now he needed a high-quality life force factor to assist in the breakthrough, and these three Admiral-level individuals were just the right nutrients. So Kaido smirked and said, "Are you ready? 3 Marines, you will soon become some of my nutrients." As expected, Kaido is increasing his strength through such evil methods. Fujitora was extremely angry. He felt that such evil people shouldn't exist in this world. Fujitora roared angrily, questioning, "You evil being, your very existence is a malignant tumor in this world. Utterly powerless, this world has always been about whoever has the biggest fist and whose words carry weight," Kaido said contemptuously to Fujitora. Just like the current world government, if it didn't have enough strength, how could it have controlled the world for 800 years? Of course, it's undeniable that the world government is already rotten. At this moment, Garp, standing beside Kyuzen, had completely lost his composure, his eyes bloodshot, as if he had gone completely insane. So many Marines had been killed by Kaido, and recalling Sengoku's death, Garp had lost his mind. He angrily charged towards Kaido. Kyuzen hurriedly shouted, "Mr. Garp, you'll be killed by Kaido like this." But now Garp couldn't hear anything else. He only wanted to kill Kaido, the Beast King. Facing Garp's lightning-fast charge, Kaido didn't take him seriously at all, gripping his spiked club and enveloping it in Hayoshoku Haki. Thunderbolt 8 trigrams. He swung his spiked club. Garp's fist was similarly covered in Hayoshoku Haki, and in the instant of their collision, Garp was immediately at a disadvantage. 2 seconds later, Garp was struck hard on the head by Kaido's spiked club, sending him flying backward. Kyuzen jumped out to take cover for Garp, but in the instant he was also thrown backward. Finally, Fujitora used the Zushi no Mi ability to stabilize both Kyuzen and Garp. Kyuzen felt a slight pain in his chest, glanced at Mr. Garp, and found him unconscious. Kyuzen immediately frowned. Unexpectedly, even Mr. Garp, after being enveloped by Kaido's beast Hayoshoku Haki, fell into a coma. This is truly troublesome. I never imagined the situation would become so drastically different. After a few seconds, Garp slowly regained consciousness, shaking his head and saying, "Disgusting Kaido. I never thought his Hayoshoku Haki attack would be so powerful. Even my own Hayoshoku Haki couldn't withstand it. Mr. Garp, the three of us should attack Kaido together." Facing Kaido alone has no chance of winning, Kyuzen reminded him. Fujitora suddenly raised his sword and angrily shouted, "Gravity Blade, Mighty Tiger." A powerful gravity attack swept towards Kaido, but this incredibly powerful attack, upon hitting Kaido's body, didn't cause any ripples. Fujitora, using his Kenbun-shoku Haki, sensed that Kaido was completely unaffected and instantly raised his eyebrows, muttering, "I didn't expect my attack to be so ineffective." In truth, Fujitora was extremely frustrated. He was known as a monster, yet he appeared so pale and powerless against Kaido of the 100 Beasts. Garp, having regained some composure, inquired Kyuzen, "Do you have a way to contact the world government? If you can, please have them send reinforcements as soon as possible." "No offense, Mr. Garp, I also have no way to contact the world government because my phone was completely damaged by the Beast King Kaido's Hayoshoku Haki attack just now." Kyuzen replied helplessly. They were facing a death trap today unless they could escape from Beast King Kaido's hands, but that was highly unlikely. Garp's face darkened even more upon hearing this. Was their fate today sealed? The next moment, Garp, Kyuzen, and Fujitora all tensed up instantly because Kaido, wielding a club covered in Hayoshoku Haki, appeared before them. Kaido's target was Kyuzen. Thunderbolt 8 trigrams. Facing Kaido's attack, Kyuzen also hastily covered his head with both hands. The moment Kaido's staff struck Kyuzen's arm, Kyuzen felt his arm bones crack. Boom! Kyuzen was slammed into a deep pit. His defenses were completely unable to withstand Kaido's attack. And the moment Kaido finished striking Kyuzen, Garp and Fujitora on either side also attacked Kaido. Just as their attacks were about to land on Kaido, they were struck by an invisible force and sent flying. Shinra Tensei. Garp and Fujitora tumbled dozens of meters across the ground before finally stopping. Fujitora raised his eyebrows and said, "That same force again. What kind of ability is that?" Garp, having stabilized his body, immediately ran towards Kyuzen's location in the pit. He couldn't let anything happen to Kyuzen. He was now the Marine Admiral, far more important than this old man. He could speak, but Kyuzen couldn't die. Even if this old man dies, the Navy can still function. If Kyuzen dies, the Navy will be shaken up once again. Kaido didn't launch an attack, but quietly watched while carrying his spiked club. After activating the Rinnegan, Kaido's fighting style became more varied. Now, these so-called Emperor-level fighters posed no threat to him. To have a truly satisfying fight, he needed at least 10 Emperor-level fighters. Otherwise, there would be no enjoyment at all. Garp also pulled Kyuzen out of the basement, anxiously asking, "Kyuzen, are you all right? You can't fall." "I'm fine, Mr. Garp. I'm really sorry to have you save me." Kyuzen indicated that he was all right and also expressed his gratitude. Kyuzen glanced at his arm, his bones fractured, and whispered, "Mr. Garp, We probably won't see the sun rise tomorrow. Kyuzin, you little brat. Garp understood perfectly what Kyuzin meant. For 800 years, the Navy had never been defeated, but since the appearance of Kaido of the 100 Beasts, the Navy seemed to have reached the end of its rope. Garp sighed, saying, "Let's fight side by side one last time." Garp had come to terms with it. Whether it was good fortune or misfortune, it was unavoidable. Kaido said coldly, "You three, have you finished discussing your tactics?" "Don't blame me for not giving you time." Fujitora loudly questioned, "Lord Kaido, what is your purpose? Or what do you want to obtain?" Such a dangerous character, Fujitora thought it was necessary to understand Kaido's ultimate goal, whether he could bring endless calamities to the people. This was what truly worried Fujitora. Kaido replied with great interest, "Then I'll tell you, my goal is the Void Throne." The Void Throne? Fujitora couldn't help but gasp, replying, "Lord Kaido's goal is truly vast. He's eyed a throne no one has dared to sit on for 800 years. Haha. Kaido's eyes revealed a look of contempt, mockingly saying, "You frogs in a well. It seems your knowledge is nothing more than this. You don't even know what the true face of the world government is." Kyuzin immediately sensed an unusual scent and inquired, "Kaido, what exactly do you know? Or have you seen something?" Garp and Fujitora were both suspicious and curious about something. It was clear from Kaido's tone that they didn't know, especially Garp, whose eyes darted around nervously. Kaido cracked his neck and sneered, "Since you want to know, then I'll let you know before you die. In the eyes of the world, the supreme power of the world government is the Gorosei, but the truth is quite different. I'm saying this. Do you three understand the secret behind it?" "You mean there exists an even higher power above the Gorosei?" Garp immediately retorted. With Garp's counter-question, Kyuzin and Fujitora both realized that the only entity capable of surpassing the Gorosei was the Void Throne. Fujitora exclaimed in horror, "Could it be that the Void Throne, the symbol of peace, has already been occupied by someone? If so, then the entire world has been deceived by the world government?" Sigh. Kyuzin sighed. Even as a marine admiral, his understanding of the world government was far inferior to that of a pirate. If someone had occupied the Void Throne, how dark must the events that followed be?